I'd like to convene the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here on July 10th. Secretary Ringo, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Elper. Absent. Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Commissioner Musich. Absent. Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Rucker. Absent. Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Vice President Abeni.
Present.
President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Just to announce, Commissioner Musich is away and Commissioner Rucker is doing his duty after our wonderful little rainstorm that we just had. Oh, you're here too. Okay, sorry. And then also just a couple of things. Well, no, we'll approve the agenda first. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Just want to note that the staff has asked for the cannabis item to be pulled, and also for the admin and finance, being that we do have a couple absences, I'm going to appoint Vice President Abeni and myself to the admin and finance committee. I also wanted to note to everybody a reminder that on the 17th, next Wednesday, we will have a meeting, and that will be our land acknowledgement training. So with that, I am going to have reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions.
Minutes.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
What I'd like
Had
to.
turn my glasses on.
Yeah, that's okay. I'd like to move for approval the regular meeting minutes of June 18th, 2024.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, now we will have reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, and committees, and Superintendent, I believe, has some information you'd like to share with us all.
Thank you, President Forney and Commissioners. I appreciate it. So I'm going to start, first of all, thanking all of you for joining us tonight. So before we move further into the agenda, I want to take a few minutes to address some of the misinformation that is out in the public and make a few things crystal clear today. To start, I'm getting calls urging the Park Board to return to the bargaining table. I will do that if needed, but only after 363 leadership allows members to vote on our last offer. After hearing what I'm about to share, I think you understand why we won't return to the bargaining table until the vote occurs. The Park Board has been bargaining in good faith since December. What bargaining in good faith looks like is attending scheduled negotiations and mediation sessions and not canceling. It looks like coming to meetings prepared with substantive proposals. It looks like responding to proposals in a timely manner. The Park Board has done that. 363 leadership has not. In fact, 363 leadership did not provide substantive proposals or responses until mediation meetings in June and the 1st of July, more than 6 months after we first met. We have been told by 363 members that they were unaware of the details of the best and last and final offer that was shared in the room Monday night. Why isn't 363 leadership sharing this information with all of its members? This is unconscionable and it's wrong. This strike is about wages and compensation. The strike is about wages and compensation. 363 leadership has asked members. 363 leadership has asked members to scrutinize me. I welcome the scrutiny. Since I joined the Park Board 5 years ago, I have successfully fought for higher wages and more positions. Since 2019, MPRB wages have a cumulative wage growth of 14.4%, higher than those of Ramsey County, St. Paul, Hennepin County, and Minneapolis 363 members. I'm getting to it. Some may ask, what about the City of Minneapolis 363 members' recent contract? City of Minneapolis 363 members' wages lagged behind ours, and at the end of 2026, with our current offer, wage scale, and increases. All but one of Local 363 comparable positions will have wages at or above those of similar Minneapolis 363 positions. In fact, Commissioners, before you is a chart that directly compares 2026 wages of multiple city and Park Board 363 positions. There's also some in the back of the room for those that are interested, and I think it's probably in the very back. What that scale will look like this in the back, you'll see it. 363 leadership claimed that some market data puts our wages below competitive average rates. They are basing this on job titles only, not job duties or requirements. Look at the study we have shared publicly that compares our wages with the wages of positions in surrounding communities that are doing the same work, not job titles, and you'll see that our wages are higher. A very fair offer has been proposed, and 363 leadership refuses to bring it to their members to vote. Why won't they bring this? Why won't they bring this if the vote, instead of unilaterally holding their members to a strike? We have asked and continue to ask that 363 leadership bring our current offer to their membership. Our members have a chance to vote on the offer. The Park Board will return to negotiations. If the offer is rejected, until then, returning to the bargaining table without a vote makes no sense for the organization or the public's interest. We have shared our offer publicly through news media and our website and our email subscription list. We have transparent in our offer. And in the back, you will see, of course, our offer and what we are comparable to the city of Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. I appreciate it. Any questions? Otherwise, I will move to Commissioner Menz. Did you want to?
I was going to report on outside committees.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
I'm asking for, outside boards and committees, yes.
Yes, a couple of outside committee reports. I'm a server on the MTAC, and it looks like before this body will be the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission annual report coming very soon. I know that the leadership of that group has been working hard on it. And along with that report at the same time will be the EAB communication recommendations that the group worked on around how we improve communication around diseased trees on private property. So look for that probably in August. Also yesterday, I attended the MWMO meeting, which was encouraging. The group is planning. MWMO is the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, as you all know. They care for the Mississippi River watershed that they entail. There were a couple of minor adjustments to the boundaries, but the most exciting thing for me was the fact that there's going to be a big plan for a 100-year celebration of the river and like the organization taking care of that river, so in 2026. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate around celebrating the history of the river and how much it's been cleaned up over the years and what happens along with that. So really encouraging work that's happening in the MWMO.
Thank you for that report. Not seeing any other lights, then we will go then to our consent agenda. Somebody would like to move the two items that we have on the
I
consent
will
agenda?
move Resolution 2024-132 and Resolution 2024-133 is a combined slate.
And I will second it and note that I'm here.
Thank you, Commissioner Helper.
All right. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? That action carries. Okay, on to our planning committee.
On behalf of the Planning Committee, I'd like to move Resolution 2024-125, resolution approving a maintenance agreement with Minnehaha Creek Watershed District regarding the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's obligations to implement the stormwater management rule set forth pursuant to Minnesota statutes, chapters 103B and 103D within Powderhorn Park as part of the Powderhorn Park improvement projects.
Second.
Great. Any questions or discussion on this? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? That action carries. On to Administration and Finance.
On behalf of Administration and Finance Committee, I would like to move Resolution 2024-121, Resolution approving construction and cost-sharing cooperative agreement with the City of Minneapolis for East Bank Trail Underpass intersection improvements and connections within Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park and the Above the Falls Regional Park.
Second?
Any questions, any discussion on that item? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That action carries. We have another one.
I will also move Resolution 2024-124, a resolution amending the 2024 Capital Improvement Program to allocate $24,250 from the 2024 Capital Construction Contingency to the PV Field Park Turf Improvement Project.
Second?
Okay. Any questions, any discussion on that item? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to our next resolution.
I will also move Resolution 2024-129, a resolution approving the First Amendment to the Loppet Operating Agreement of the Adventure and Welcome Center outdoor area.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions on that item? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, to our next resolution from Operations and Environment.
I would propose to move that, since the chair of the committee's not here.
I appreciate that.
I'll move Resolution 2024-122, resolution approving agreement for operations and maintenance of East Bank Trail Underpass connection with the City of Minneapolis for East Bank Trail Underpass, intersection improvements, and connections within Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park and the Above the Falls Regional Park. Second?
Thank you. Any discussion or questions on that item? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, we are already down to unfinished business where we'll have a presentation regarding the timelines, process, community engagement, and proposed design for the draft Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. So, oh, Madeline, you're already up here. Thank you.
Sorry for the mouthful with the resolution title for the discussion item. All right, so I'm here to talk about the draft Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. So to start the project location here, the map is showing the lime green boundary for the Midtown Greenway. And then there's also a dashed line going across for the Short Line Bridge area. And then this is kind of showing all of the existing regional parks and trails that connect and are kind of nearby the Midtown Greenway. Just a little bit of a refresher on the timeline so far with this project. It started in about fall, winter of 2022 with the vision and discovery, a little bit of community engagement, and then a synthesis and review of a number of documents and plans that have been done since the Greenway was established, which was a little over 20 years ago. And right now we're in we worked on developing a draft regional trail plan document and a draft agreement between the city, Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority, and the Park Board, which those three agencies combined make the owner, operator, and the implementing agency. That agreement needed to be approved by all three agencies, and you all, as the Park Board commissioners, approved the agreement on March 20th. And with the approval by the other two agencies, we were able to release the draft plan document for public comment on June 20th. So we're about midway through the public comment period, which is why I'm here kind of giving this presentation to you all. And once the public comment period closes in roughly fall or winter of 2024, we'll be moving towards the approvals process, which first starts with you all as Park Board commissioners, and then kind of in between your approval, if it was to move forward, there would be any amendments to that agreement that was approved, because there's an exhibit in there that has some of the draft plan maps. So if any of those get modified through this public comment period process, that would be where the kind of bulk of that amendment piece would come in. And then following those two steps, we would then bring the draft plan, like we do our other regional park and trail plans, to the Metropolitan Council for their review and consideration. Since it's regional and the Met Council is that overarching governing body of our regional system. And then if all of that moves forward with approvals, everyone approves the plan, the agreement gets amended and approved by all three agencies, we are then moving towards doing those summer park counts for 2025. And the park counts are one of the ways that we are able to get that regional park and trail funding. So just a quick highlight on some of those pieces of the agreement that was approved. It's again between the Park Board, the City of Minneapolis, and HICRA, Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority. It's really just about confirming the regional status by the owner and operator, since that's largely not the Park Board in this case. And it's focused on the ownership, operations, and then the use of the regional funding for the Greenway if it were to receive the regional status. And then again, as I've mentioned, it had to be approved by all three agencies. So now that it has been approved, we are now working on that regional trail plan, which is that second step, administrative step to bringing the Midtown Greenway in as a regional trail within the city of Minneapolis. And just as a reminder, the Park Board was involved because it's the only implementing agency within the city of Minneapolis that is able to provide those regional park and trail funds. Here's that project location map with a few extra notes. So within the regional trail boundary, we have incorporated a couple of existing Park Board properties as a means of just thinking about kind of design and how these spaces interact with the Greenway, and being able to offer some park-like amenities right next to the Greenway. So those include from left to right, or closest to the chain of lakes to the river, the Mall Park, the Sioux Line Garden, the CPRO site, the ramp that connects the Midtown Greenway to Brackett Park, and then a small portion of West River Parkway where the Greenway connects into Mississippi Gorge Regional Park. And then the little blue rectangle on the map here is showing where Brackett Park is, just for reference. It's not in the regional trail boundary, but just so that you can see how our other park areas kind of interact with space. So also included within the regional trail boundary is the short line bridge, but as you can see, we have it kind of as a dashed line, which is because we are providing a way for it to become a part of this regional trail if things were to move forward. There's a lot of things that are unknown with that right now. Currently, the Met Council is doing a feasibility study for that area, so kind of following that and future discussions between HICRA, the city, and I'm sure other partners, there's likely to be more information kind of with the short line bridge, but presently it's just being shown here so that that possibility is there. But again, it's dashed because it's not fully committing the Park Board to anything or any other agency at this time. It's just in recognition of that opportunity. So the regional trail plan itself is building on a lot of existing plans, engagement, and projects that have happened since the Greenway was formed, which was around 2000. So it's been around for quite a long time, and there's been so much feedback and everything that's been done. So that was really how a lot of this trail plan was informed. It includes narrative and graphics, just like most of our other long-term plans. It fulfills all of the regional plan requirements that the Met Council has, and it will require the approval of both the Park Board Commissioners as well as the Met Council. And following the guidelines that you all had set, the community engagement is really focused on those low-cost amenities and amenity zones, which I'll get into in a moment. And that's, the amenity zones are really how we were able to kind of help to guide that focus for the engagement. So this is just a list of a lot of the different planning efforts that went into kind of informing this, this plan. So there's quite a few, as you can see, and they span quite a lengthy distance of time. And the engagement for this public comment period, which is where we're really focusing community engagement for this plan, is really, again, focusing on those amenity zones and the low-cost amenities, following those guidelines that you all had set last year. And some of the things along those lines that we're kind of asking for feedback or are open to getting feedback on within the parameters would be those low-cost amenity zone offerings within within each zone. Should we add things? Should we subtract things? Where the amenity zone locations are they in the right spots? Do we need to add or subtract? Those are all things that people could provide feedback on. There's also, in addition to the low-cost amenities within these 8 different zones, you'll see a map in a few minutes here, there's wayfinding signage, dots, as well as ecological enhancements, plantings that span the entire regional trail boundary, and those are also things that we are asking for feedback on and considered to be included in those, the potential funding along with those low-cost amenities. And then the regional trail boundary, as I mentioned, there's a couple of additional park areas beyond just the paved trail that exists that we included, and so that's another area for feedback. And then all of our communications we've been sharing, we've been really trying to be clear with people about what we are asking for and what kind of includes a low-cost amenity, what that means versus those high-cost amenities, and using to the best we can the lists of examples that you all had provided within that Resolution 2023-127. So there's quite a bit of outreach that we've been doing during this public comment period. We have posted the draft plan online along with an online survey like we typically do. And then we also translated the amenity zones and the survey into Spanish and Somali in addition to English. And then we have printed copies of the draft plan along with those translated amenity zones at rec centers that are kind of along the Greenway in various spots, as well as it's also at headquarters here. And then there are quite a few lawn signs that we've put out along the Greenway to try to advertise for people. There's also been some advertisements in local newspapers, and then we've partnered with Venture Bike Shop and the Cultural Wellness Center on some of the slow roll bike rides that they do along the Greenway to try to get feedback. We started that a little bit before the public comment period and have done that throughout the comment period as well. And then we've also partnered with the Midtown Greenway Coalition to do some Somali and Spanish language focus groups. And then we are having a virtual open house. It's actually going to be tomorrow from 4:30 to 5:30 if you're interested. And then we've also shared with neighborhood groups and community organizations the general information, and we're open to doing presentations with them as needed. So here's just a summary of some of the feedback we've been hearing so far. People are interested in seeing some of those end-of-trip facilities, and there's a lot of support for what's already been shown in the trail plan. And there's also some suggestions of some other things like bike pumps and bike racks. But people are supportive of drinking fountains and benches, which are currently shown in the amenity zones. And then there's also interest in restrooms, which we don't currently have in any of the amenity zones, though the portable restrooms are something that is considered a low-cost amenity, so it could be incorporated. There's support for a connection across the river, and there's been some varied feedback around people experiencing homelessness within the Midtown Greenway area. There's been some expressed concerns regarding safety, but there's also been some feedback that people would like to have the space be welcoming and supportive of any park and trail users that would like to use the space. And then there's also been some suggestions or questions around the amenity zones, either to remove a spot because they're kind of clustered together, maybe space them out a little bit. And then there's also been some support for the plantings and ecological enhancements, and people would also like to see some more shade because it gets very sunny along the Greenway. Some other feedback that we have sort of classified right now as potentially out of scope, kind of per the guidelines we've got, are related to improving wayfinding and crossings around the Greenway that are kind of outside of the trail space. And then there's also been some feedback about the trail itself related to maintenance, quality of the trail, winter plowing, desire to see it widened, and then people would also like to see lighting and parking. So those are all things just giving you a heads up that they exist, but we are still kind of keeping a focus on our engagement. So in terms of the maps in the plan, there are these segment maps. There are 11 in total, because the Greenway is pretty long, kind of very linear. So this is just an example for you all to see. So on the map, it's showing the dots, which are kind of representative of the proposed improvements. So the red is wayfinding, the blue is safety/accessibility, the yellow is transit connectivity, and that's really kind of an identification point. And then there's also some lime green dots that are showing some existing access points. And then the ecological enhancements are kind of in this hashed and dotted colors, which are kind of hard to see at this scale. You'll have to kind of look at the maps at a later time. And then you'll notice that there's kind of a lime green line along the top part of the trail, and that's really highlighting the actual regional trail boundary section. That darker green is just acknowledging that that area is existing kind of within that, typically in the trench space, but that is HICRA land, but it is not included within the regional trail boundary because it's the area that they have identified as where future transit may go should that happen at a later time. So that's just to kind of orient you onto those segment maps. And then this is those amenity zones I've been talking about. So there are 8 of them. 4 of them are next to parks. So the mall, Sioux Line Garden, the CPRO site, and then the West River Parkway one. And then there are 4 that are either on city or HICRA land. So the one at Nicollet, the one at 5th, Bloomington, and 28th. So there's kind of a mix of them in here. And then these are, I'm just gonna kind of quickly run through these so you can get a sense of what they look like. So these are how those amenity zones look. They're a zoom-in area, and they're very, very zoomed in, but you can see kind of where those wayfinding signs, benches, waste and recycling would be kind of located. So it's a little bit, the level of detail here is a little bit more than what you might typically see in a regional trail plan, but again, it's trying to work within the guidelines that we have and providing ways for people to give input here. So this is the one that's near the mall, and these amenities align with some of the work that has been done so far on an implementation project for the mall. So we've been working with the project manager for that to make sure that anything shown here would align with any of that work. The Sioux Line Garden, you'll notice that this is graphically different. Right now, we're only showing an aerial image, and then we have this large note here about how the Sioux Line Garden is undergoing remediation of the soils, and that will have, and there will be a concept planning development process as a part of the work that's been done already with Sioux Line. And so the concept plan development and engagement is still going to happen, and that's just going to run kind of in parallel with our regional trail planning process. So we have it in here. This graphic will eventually change to whatever is adopted as a part of that concept plan approval process for the garden. So depending on when that happens, there may end up needing to be an amendment to incorporate that into the Sioux Line Garden, or into the, the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. But we're working, again, with the project manager for this to make sure everything is lining up, and any feedback we get that happens to be related to the concept, we'll share that with the project manager and make sure that gets to the right spot. So then for Nicollet and First, this graphic is the one that goes with the city's concept plan that they've approved. And so that's why it looks a little bit different. But in their concept plan, they're showing that a ramp for access to the Greenway is actually going to move to First. And so we anticipate that this amenity zone would kind of be most likely kind of around First there in terms of some of those the low-cost amenities in here. The ramp is while we're showing it here, is not something that is within the regional funding, and we're not showing it that way. But it's just on the graphic here for reference. And then this is amenity zone 4. There's a wayfinding bench, waste and recycling. Here's the amenities shown at the CPRO site and Bloomington at 28th, which is by next to the Sabo Bridge, and then at West River Parkway. So those are the 8 amenity zones, and then that we're asking for feedback on. And then for approvals process, so you all had approved the agreement in March of 2020. We opened the public comment period on June 20th. We're doing this presentation as that midway point, and the public comment period will close August 5th. Once that closes, the staff will tabulate all of the public comment feedback and make modifications to the draft plan as needed. And then following those modifications made to the draft plan, then a final plan or modified version of the draft will be brought to the board through a resolution with a public hearing at the planning committee. And at that meeting, we'll do a presentation to summarize the public comment tabulation and any plan changes, and then also present any possible amendments that commissioners would then be able to include if they so choose, or if you had other amendments, you could do it at that time too. And then if it was to be approved out of the planning committee, it would go to full board. And then if it was approved at full board, we would then have a point where we might need to make amendments. Oh, shoot.
And our open time, so I'm sorry, we will come back to you, Madeline. So I'm going to read the open time rules. Thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before I start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time board rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. I will be calling on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input should not exceed a total of 15 minutes, with a time limit to be allocated by myself, the president. Please watch the timer up here to be considerate of others when you're speaking, and to stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. Two types of items not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on these specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory or harassing words directed at anyone. So please ensure that all your comments made tonight will comply with this policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed. So only those signed up to speak may speak for their own allotted time. And we also request that each speaker provide his or her name or address. We have 15 people who wish to speak, and so I'm going to allow 1 minute each. The first person is Jean Hawkins, and after that is former council member Barbara Johnson. Jean, are you here? Yep. Please come forward.
Hi. Can I come up?
Please do.
Hi. Yes, Jean Hawkins Cook. I'm a resident of North Minneapolis.
I think there's a microphone somewhere
First
back
time.
there.
Okay, hi.
I know, it's kind of obscuring you. My apologies.
So hi, I'm Jean. I'm a resident of North Minneapolis. Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to briefly address the Blue Rail expansion as it relates to North Minneapolis, specifically as it relates to Victory, Memorial Drive and Grand Rounds. As the Victory Memorial Drive is a historic district, my understanding is that this board has the authority to protect this area that is currently used by 800,000 bikes, pedestrians, and motorists. I'd ask that the same consideration given to other parts of Minneapolis be given to North Minneapolis in the expansion of this. I'd like to specifically call out and ask that you not sever the connectivity of the Lowry entrance to the drive. My understanding of the...
My apologies, it's not a lot of time.
Okay, thank you.
But if you have written comments, if you'd like to, you could pass them on to Dawn, who's standing over here.
Okay.
So the next person, Councilmember Johnson, if you'd like to join us. And then after that is Joe Ring.
Ooh, that's better. That's better.
Better.
Thank you, Commissioners. Barb Johnson, former City Council member. Victory Memorial Drive and its connection to Theodore Wirth Parkway are a vital link in the Grand Round system and beloved by North Minneapolis residents who have had a minimal piece of the regional park system at best. Our riverfront has just begun to be developed to be able to be used for recreation purposes, and it took state law to get a designation as a historic district for Victory Memorial Drive and state law also to create North Mississippi Regional Park for our use and everyone else's use. In fact, when we cut the ribbon on the new Victory Memorial Drive flagpole in 2003, I believe it was, or 2013, I stood next to a Heritage Preservation Commission member who had been on the commission for a very long time, City's Historic Preservation Commission. He will remain nameless, but he told me he had never been to Victory Memorial Drive and didn't understand the significance of that piece of our history. So thank you very much. Thank you.
And Councilmember, if you'd like to leave your comments with Dawn, please do. Okay, Joan Ring, and then after that is Hennepin County Commissioner Linda Higgins. But Joe, please come forward.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Joe Ring. I am Chair of the Tower Hill Park Committee for Prospect Park Association. I'm here before you because the park and the tower have always been a key part of our neighborhood. And from time to time, since it no longer is used as water tower, we make sure that we have accessibility to be able to use the view deck. The city would like regular scheduled times, and we worked out an agreement with them that we would do that, but we said we need to make sure we have a cooperative agreement between you and the city so that we can function properly. So they drafted an MOU, and we thought everything was going to be moving forward, but they've informed us that the Parks Department doesn't want to okay it. And we aren't given any reason, and I would like to be able to get a reason so we have something to work with.
Do you have any written comments? If you'd like to, you can leave them with Dawn, but otherwise, we'll try and refer you to somebody, Joe.
Okay.
Hennepin County Commissioner Higgins, are you around? There you are. Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Continuing on with Victory Memorial Drive, Theodore Wirth Parkway, and where the Blue Line extension intersects. I believe that the Park Board must have a full and significant briefing and discussion about whether to approve or oppose the placement of the Lowry Avenue Station where the Metropolitan Council proposes it to be. Not only would it be massively disruptive to all the users of the park, but it would also probably be the most expensive option you could think of for that station. I would urge you to not support this option. A stop in this area was always meant to serve North Memorial Hospital. Now Hy-Vee and new housing are close by, but the current plan moves the stop farther away from all of those amenities for residents and puts it right at the intersection of the Grand Rounds where Theodore Wirth Park and Victory Memorial Parkway intersect. Thanks for your attention to this.
Thank you. And if you have any written comments, you can share them with Dawn there.
You have a letter from me.
Oh, we did. That's right. Thank you so much for it. And I'm sorry I did not ask, but anyway, Scott Jaeger, you're next, excuse me. And after that is Christopher Sam. Please come forward, Scott.
Since I have to cut my speech in half, we'll just go to the very end. All we've heard from this board and this board's management team is taxes. You are always going to raise taxes. You don't have to pay for ours. You have $30 million in a crisis fund. This is a crisis. You have $50 million in open contracts. You can pause them and invest in your workers. You have money set aside or money planned in the future. You can pause those projects and pay us. You are always going to raise taxes. Please think outside the box. You have a duty. You 9 are in charge. Management is not in charge. Mr. Bangora talks about values. I have the letter that was sent to my house threatening to break federal law. Where are the values of this board?
Christopher Sam, and then after that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do well on your name, Devian Evans, I'm sorry. Christopher, and then
Good
Davion.
afternoon. Back to the light rail. My name is Chris Sam. I'm the first vice commander of American Legion Post 1 in Minneapolis. I'm speaking on behalf of Post Commander Milt Schoen, who was unable to attend today. In perusing the multitude of proposals and studies in connection with the light rail expansion, I see much time has been spent studying and documenting the proposed effects of the realignment would have on society, the environment, and the local economy. However, not much, if anything, has been written about the impact the expansion would have on Victory Memorial Drive. Victory Memorial Drive is located in a state historical district. Victory Memorial Drive is a living memorial to the 568 Hennepin County residents who died in World War I. As a matter of fact, Minneapolis Post 1 is named after a World War I and 1st Minnesota Field Artillery Regiment veteran, Theodore Peterson, who died in France in 1919 of wounds received in battle.
I'm sorry, Christopher, if you've got written comments, if you'd like to share them with Don over here, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, Davion, and then after that is Mitchell, I think it's Anderson? Is Davion? Oh, good, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Davion Evans, as you well know. I'm just here because Monday when we came, we thought it was going to be an open forum. Well, you get to discuss what you need, and we discuss what we need. But it wasn't, and that's not right. So I feel that it's just wrong the way you're treating us. Commissioner Schaefer, you said that you want the raise to be presented with accountability, correct. But we got a $20,000 man right here, $200,000 man who done threaten people's livelihoods. Where's the accountability of that? You offered us $1. Where's the accountability of that? We shouldn't have to make no concessions. If management hire who they supposed to hire to do the job correctly, then it wouldn't be no problem. I shouldn't have to train the crew leaders. I shouldn't have to train other park keepers. But that's what we do. We do the work. No one else. You see the public has our support. That's why we're here today. The public has our support. They have our back. And we're asking you guys to have our back. And it's truly us that some of you say no. So we're asking, support us. Support the public who voted you in. That's right. That's all we're asking. All right, thank you for your time. I didn't mean to go over, but I appreciate it.
Mitchell, and then I'm not sure, I think it's Tyler Nelson. I'm not sure I'm reading your name right. Go for it, Mitchell.
Hello, Meg Forney. So this is for you. I messaged you before you were elected. I asked you how you felt about unions and if you would match inflation match wages to inflation. And you said, I support workers. They are the backbone of this organization. Lies. Just as the BS coming out of Al Bangora's mouth. It's just ridiculous. The fact that I feel just hurt, like you lied to me to get elected. Where is your accountability to your constituents? I voted for you. This is ridiculous that we even have to be here. I'm tired, and this is just, how do you sleep at night? That's all I gotta say. BS.
I'm sorry if I said.
We win! We win! We win! We win! We win! We win! Let's go!
Hello. Hello, my name is Tyra Nelson. I'm a steward. I'm nervous. I'm a member of SEIU Local 26. I'm a steward. I'm a security officer. I'm a resident of Minneapolis. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. And my kids have played for your park board. We use your beautiful parks. I have over 20 SEIU members here standing in solidarity with the members on strike. When we were negotiating our contract, 363 stood in solidarity with us. And we're here to stand in solidarity with them, as long as it takes for them to get a fair contract. A strong, fair contract. When we fight, we win.
The next person is Mark Graves, and after that is Lamar Morris Bryant. Is Mark here?
Hello, my name is Mark Graves. I work for the Boys and Girls Club. I have been part of the Boys and Girls Club since 1990. The cool thing is I actually started with the park board in 1988. I was one of the first staff at PV Park, Stevens Square, and some of the other places. I am here passionately asking this council to renew the lease for Boys and Girls Club at Phelps Community Center. Yes. These are some of the young people that I'm up here representing right now. And I'm proud of them that they have the courage to stand up here with me, but that's what I'm asking. For you guys to really consider the extension for Boys and Girls Club at Phelps Park. Thank you guys so much.
Lamar, and then after that is Jalen.
Hello, my name's Limar. I'm 13 years old. I've been coming to the club since I was 4. The club has taught me how to control my emotions and just forgive and let go. And they taught me how to fill out a job application, even though I'm not the age yet. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Jalen?
Hello, my name is Jalen. I'm 14 years old. I've been going to the club since I was 4. And the club has taught me a lot of things, like how to forgive, filling out applications, and getting us ahead of the game for a better life. Thank you.
Jackson, is that right?
Jayla.
Oh, sorry. Please, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jayla Jackson. I'm 13 years old. And I just want to say the Boys and Girls Club has really helped me change a lot. From when I first got there, I've been a member for like 8 years. And it's really helped me grow emotionally, mentally, and physically. And I want to give a big thanks to Mr. Murray because he's definitely been there for me ever since I've been there. And it helps a lot. And they teach us about our emotions, how to forgive, what our future is going to look like. And it helps us like really think about it. They help us with our emotions. They try to get us to speak up, have a voice, learn how to count money, and we can be smart futures and know how to run the world.
They need it.
Our next speaker is Mike Forcia, and then after that is Charles Wade.
Hello, my name is Mike Forcia. I'm chairman of the American Indian Movement here in Minneapolis. What I come to talk about is Sibley Park. We should never honor a person like Hitler. And we consider Sibley someone like Hitler. Took our land, threw the Dakota people away. One more thing I want to talk about is land back. East Phillips Park. These people aren't listening. Well, there's a couple here who are listening. It's a 6-acre park. We want to eliminate our homeless encampments, put 100 or so tiny homes in that park, and let us take care of our people. And we have to eliminate all that fencing that's all along Franklin Avenue. I talked to the Department of Transportation today. They're willing to sign over the Wall of Forgotten Natives to us. But in order for this to work, we need East Phillips Park. We need land back. That's what we're asking you for, is land back. Thank you so very much. And you have our support. You have our support. I see equity and accountability. Some of these people just words on the wall. Especially this guy.
We've been waiting over 31 months here with the Sibley Park name change. It needs to change. We can't be sitting around here too longer. Tired of waiting.
El Bangora, he will not return a phone call. He will not meet with me. For some reason, I scared the shit out of these people. I scared the shit, and they don't want to meet with me.
Charles Weed, please.
Hi, my name is Charles Weed. I'm the president of the Minneapolis Community Clay Courts. I just wanted to come talk to you guys about some good news we got last week. The United States Tennis Association National gave us a 2024 Outstanding Facility Award. All of you guys took a chance on us 3 years ago. We built this court with you. It's a beautiful court, obviously, and only like 3 facilities in the United States get this award. So we all get to enjoy this award. We'll travel to the United States Open in August to receive this award on your behalf. So just a great deal of gratitude for all you guys have done for clay courts in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. With that, then, I will be closing then the open time, and we will go back to our presentation that we have.
I'd like to speak.
We have
Can I
not
speak?
completed. Thank you. We have closed the open time.
Well, I'm going to speak anyways. We're not going to stand for your silence anymore. What do you think that your job is up here? They don't know. You think it's enough to just listen? Because you're complicit. When Al spreads his lies and threatens workers and their families and tries to intimidate them, he's speaking for you.
Yes, he is.
What do you have to say to the workers? Stand up, 363. To the workers, does anybody? This is more important than your rules, your order, your time clock. Our livelihoods are on the line. This is about our parks, the community that we serve. This conduct that is yours, that you are owning with your silence, is beneath Minneapolis. The residents of Minneapolis do not agree with this conduct. It's illegal, anti-worker, union busting. It's unacceptable. You have the authority right now to speak to this. Any one of you, anyone willing, anybody have the courage that any of these workers had when they walked off the job?
warning. They can't go back tomorrow, but we don't want him because your contract does not work for us.
And he shouldn't be saying that he knows 363 members that's telling him that we don't want to strike when we're here. He's not a member. That's not his call. This is our call, not his. That means if he got that much power, we're just slaves then. Because that's what slavery is. You answer to me when I call you on every beckon. That's what a slave is. And that's what y'all treating us like. And the community won't stand for it. That's why y'all was here Monday. Y'all don't understand that? These are the voters. Our true bosses told you to make him do his job so we can get back to doing our job. That's what they told us. They told each and every last one of you that. Like I was screaming back there, you pay my rent, I'll pay yours. I'll live better. Because $1,300 sound way more than $2,000, brother. And you make way more than I do. Way more than I do. I got a mentally retarded sister. I'm trying to buy a house and can't even afford it. She lives in Chicago to this day with my cousin. My cousin has brain cancer. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I can't keep affording her if I bring her up here to move her around because somebody buys this complex and now I got to move. She doesn't deserve to live like that. I don't deserve to live like that. Our children do not deserve to come to these parks and have dirty bathrooms and dirty pools to play in and dirty playgrounds. This is unacceptable, guys. Come on now. Stand up. Be accounted for. You want to stand for something, not fall for everything. Now, this man has lied. This man has lied more than once. The saying says, you fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. I'm not gonna do this. We have families. We have people that care about us. We are connected to many and many of people. Like I keep saying, the public has spoken. They want us to get this right. They want to see their parks back open. They want to see us do the right thing. They want to see you guys do the right thing. I mean, this is appalling. We're not asking for much. We're not even asking what we deserve.
We're not trying to get rich. We're trying to survive.
All we're asking for is for my kids to be able to eat. If I can bring my sister up here so she can have a decent living. It's hard for me. My mama been dead since I was 14. My father died as a Marine. So I've been fatherless for a long time. And I was fatherless on the streets of Chicago. And I still found the way up here, still found the way to make it. But if I can't reach back and get my sister, I'm a piece of shit. And I ain't gonna lie to you. I love my family. I love this job. But you're making it hard. My wife has to work 2 jobs. I should be working 2 jobs, but I got to come here. How can we have a family? How can we unite? This is supposed to be. I started this job because some of the crew leaders told me this is a family-oriented place. Family or we want you to be here. We want you to respect your family, grow your family. We hire people from Wisconsin that don't even want to come put money into our system in our city. Spent the whole COVID at home. But that's who we hire. But we won't take care of our taxpaying citizens. We won't give back land. We won't get these kids their parks back. And we won't get the park workers what they need. But we making plans for 100 years from down the line. Right. As this brother said earlier, we making plans 100 years down the line. Ain't none of us gonna be here to see it. So we don't know if those plans gonna happen or not. But the plans you can make can happen and make change in people's lives today, now, at this moment. And that's all we asking, Al. Ain't nobody asking for nothing else there. Brother, I believe in you. When you first started, I believed in you. They wanted to hire everybody else. I'm like, oh man, that's a black guy. I'm gonna tell you what's real. I want to see you in power. But you can't sit here and play that line game. Because one thing I believe in, that's the honest God truth. I tell my kids, that's the truth. If you lie to me, I can't trust you no more. I'm not a liar. I don't hang around liars. My pocket is small. So if you lie to me, don't do that. That's against the rules of engagement. You shouldn't lie to people you say you care about. And you stated Monday that you care about this place. You care about the workers. So show the workers that you care. Tell your team to come back to the table, drop the concession. We're not asking for much. Like I said, I just got to get a $13,000 loan for my son to go to Dunwoody College to try to be an electrician. What if he fails? What if he fails? That's $13,000 extra I can't pay back. That's why me and my wife's working 2 jobs. We under attack. The middle class is under attack. There is no more middle class. It's slipping little by little by little. And you can help us hold on to what we got. But it seems like you're choosing not to. We don't want to be upset with you guys. We don't want to be at war with you. No. But this is where we at. And we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here. If you can show us what we asking for too much, okay. But we done made that concession. We done came down.
You went backwards.
Correct, and that's all we saying. Stay afloat. Keep us afloat. I can't swim. So that's all we're asking for, a fair contract. We're not asking for much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you letting us do this, but still, AJ got numbers. We got numbers that say you don't even got to raise taxes, and that's what hurt. For y'all to sit up here and try to turn the public against us and say that y'all got to levy extra taxes, that hurts. That hurts. Because I've been out for almost 2 months telling people, no, your taxes ain't got to be raised. So now that makes me look like a liar when people see me again. Because I'm going to be back out there again and again and again until we get this right. Right. And I'm going to let them know again and again and again, I will never lie to you intentionally or mislead you. But that's what y'all doing. That's what y'all doing. I was taught that if you add something onto the truth, it makes it a lie. If you take something away from the truth, it makes it a lie. The truth stands strong by itself. You don't need to add nothing to it. You don't need to take nothing from it. So let's be truthful here with each other. Let's be truthful here with each other. Y'all can afford this. We can afford this. But we can't keep affording to be on work. And you can't keep trying to push us to the brink of destruction. Because that's what you're doing. When you telling us that somebody done came to you, when the union is right, when we're right here saying that we on strike. And you telling us to vote. That's not your right, bro. That's not your right. Your right is to get the people back to the table, to get us back to doing our job.
I apologize, but I need to interrupt. I really do apologize. Thank you for sharing. We're glad that you were able to express yourself, but I need, as I indicated, to close open time, and we have to go about our business. So thank you.
You need to listen to more people.
No.
You need to listen to each and every worker that's in this room. If the best you can do is listen, then you're gonna listen.
Thank you very
much. Who else
much.
wants to speak?
Okay, no.
Who else has something to say?
Okay, I apologize, but I'm going to give you 3 more. Okay, if you do not close this open time, I will recess the board. I will recess the board. If you're all hearing me, I will recess the board.
Function in some areas, and you want to keep
board,
building
we are
more parks
recessed.
and reduce the number of people. It's not going to work. You're going to run this shit into the ground.
The board is recessed. Sorry.
How much did that blouse cost? Probably my whole paycheck. Let's see the fake cry again.
I get it. 100-year plan.
Al, you owe my wife an apology. She received your letter threatening that lock us out, and I had to explain to her that she had nothing to worry about because what you and your band of tyrants was doing is illegal. And I had to console her and make sure that she was fine. You owe every single man and woman standing here right now an apology. You owe my wife and kids an apology. You had a chance to do that on Monday, but you fed us more lies than we've seen through them. You owe us an apology.
Hey, ho, ho, McBorny's got to go. 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 Hey, ho, ho,
up your raise, please. Come on.
We can negotiate. Don't have anything else planned.
Just a quick thank you for you three that stand and doing your job. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm adjourning the full board and moving it then to the planning committee. The planning committee convene. Yep.
Okay. Noting the time is 6:13, I'd like to call the Planning Committee to order. We have to wait, we'll wait 1 minute until the secretary's back at her station. Secretary, when you get a second, will you please take the roll?
Commissioner Elper.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Here.
Chair Benny.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would somebody please move the agenda for approval?
Move the agenda.
Any discussion about the agenda? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have one set of minutes. Would somebody please move those for consideration? and
I
approval?
will move the Planning Committee minutes of June 18th, 2024.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. So we do have a public hearing tonight regarding the Clinton Field Park improvements. That's not to start till 6:30. So with that, I think I want to wait on the resolution related to Clinton Park and move to the second item, action item. Would somebody please move that resolution for consideration?
I will move Resolution 2024-138, a resolution approving a comment letter on the supplemental draft environmental impact statement, SDEIS, for the Blue Line Extension Light Rail Transit Project, which may impact parkland in North Minneapolis, including Worth, Victory Memorial Parkway, Regional Trail, and North Commons Park.
Thank you. So what I want to do here, there are actually a few speakers we're going to hear from regarding this resolution, and we've already had some people in open time speak to this as well. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and ask Councilmember Latricia Vita, who's here, to come up and speak with us for a bit about, make some comments about this project. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I appreciate you giving me some time to be here, Chair Benet, and thanks to the members of the Planning Committee. My name is Latricia Vita. I'm a council member, former Parks Commissioner here at the Minneapolis Park Board. I want to let you know how dearly myself and North Minneapolis residents hold Theodore Worth Parkway and Victory Memorial Drive, and how deeply they are concerned about what the Blue Line Project Office is proposing with respect to the grade crossing, the at-grade crossing of the Blue Line with our parkways. These parkways and lands are among the most special and precious places that Northside residents have. The history and beauty of these parkways and the grand rounds has deep meaning to my constituents. Some of them you heard from earlier today. The grand rounds is a thread that runs through our entire city, and one that I thought united all of Minneapolitans in our shared love for the park system. I was devastated to see that the Metropolitan Council and the Blue Line Project Office are proposing an at-grade crossing of the light rail transit train on parkways in North Minneapolis. I was shocked, and I couldn't believe that anyone would propose this. This is an extremely hurtful planning choice to the north side. All park districts in this city have part of the grand rounds in them. You all have parkways in your districts. I ask you each to imagine what you would do if the Met Council and transit planners propose an at-grade crossing at Minnehaha Parkway, Lake of the Owls Parkway, Bede-Macoska Parkway, or Lake Harriet Parkway, on St. Anthony Parkway, or Stinson Boulevard, or on the East and West River roads. What would your constituents think? What would you think? Would any of you say yes to that? Do you think any of your constituents would say yes to that? Absolutely not. No one would agree to that. The park board must stand up for park boards. It's your duty. I love the park board and the parkway so much that I carried the ordinance and the funding on the city council last year to get you the money to fix the parkways. I believe in the parkways, but what is being done by the Met Council and the Blue Line planners is a travesty for parks. Talk about discrimination. There's absolutely no way that any planner in the city would consider it as an option to cross the grand rounds in any other place other than North Minneapolis. The Grand Rounds offers a way for our residents and visitors to navigate our beautiful city and enjoy a free and uninterrupted way to view our magnificent park system. That experience will come to a screeching halt in North Minneapolis if you allow the Blue Line as planned to happen. At least every 2 minutes, you will be blocked between two ugly bridges at a noisy intersection with railroad arms on what is supposed to be the Great Grand Round. It won't be grand at all. It won't be the Grand Round system in North Minneapolis. It'll be nothing but a grand train stop. If the Blue Line happens, it will make a deep cut in our community. If the park board allows this to happen, you will be allowing the north side to be divided. You have the power to stop this, so stop it. You must insist that there will be no at-grade crossing on the parkways in North Minneapolis. You need to use your power to stand up for the north side. We do not want this. I am doing what I can as a city council member, but I need you all to stand with me. Please, 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 I'm asking you, as park commissioners, as a former parks commissioner, to stand up for your values, stand up for your property, and stand up for the Grand Round system and Theo Worth and Victory Memorial Parkways. Send the strongest message possible that these planners and to these planners and just say no. Also, I urge you to stand up for your workers, Commissioner. It is your duty.
Okay. Thank you for attending and making those comments, Council Member. With that, I'd like to actually turn to Council Rice. I thought it might be good before we move into staff presentations, just to hear a little bit about the process that we're under, the process that we're in, not specifically 4F, but the process of the environmental impact statement and this work, and how it compares to the Southwest Light Rail and where we were at that during the same period with the same issues maybe, but where were we at that time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did, getting ready for this meeting, Commissioner Benny asked me to do some research, as did Mr. Arvidsson, on this project and the various implications. There is Mr. Arvidsson will explain, the park board staff has been involved in the planning process, but it's reaching a critical junction now where this board has about 2 more weeks to the board officially to fashion its position, and then the staff a little less than a month to actually get their comments in. And so it's a very critical period of time to look at. So there's 2 issues. One is Mr. Arvidsson has been struggling with a legal issue that was presented during the planning of this about the Met Council and the planners have made some assertions about this land that the Blue Line would cross. It's the intersection of Theodore Worth Parkway, Victory Memorial Drive. Mr. Arvidsson will explain it's roughly a triangular area of about 6 to 9 acres of land. And the Blue Line project planners have asserted that they have near unfettered right to do what they want in that area. We were referred that issue. The planners sent us some old deeds and easements. We really didn't find what we were looking for. By the way, I've been working with Greg Soll from the Malkerson Gunn Martin firm, as well as Pat Steinhoff. They're 2 real estate lawyers. That's their expertise. We mulled it around. Finally, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they produced a deed from 1962 from the park board that granted an easement to the Minnesota Highway Department for a project there. But what's interesting about that project was there, prior to up in the 50s, early 60s, there was a thing called the Lowry traffic circle, which was the intersection of 7 roads, West Broadway, Theodore Parkway, Lowry Avenue, and Oakdale Avenue. And literally it was an old circle, and all of those 7 roads were at grade, and it created a massive traffic situation that needed resolution. And MnDOT came along in the 60s and proposed a plan that separated the grade of West Broadway, West Broadway, US Highway 52, from Lowry and Worth Parkway, and resolved that circumstance and allowed the cars to flow along the parkway relatively unimpeded and intersected only at Lowry, that then went into what was a very growing entity called North Memorial Hospital. And the MnDOT then transferred the property, the highway, back to Hennepin County in an elaborate thing that happened in the late 80s, along with that easement. And what this memo addresses is that Mr. Steinhoff from Malkerson Gunn concludes that in fact, the state, or excuse me, the Met Council, the project office, Hennepin County, do not have the authority to design whatever they would like to in this space. They don't have that unfettered right to do that. And in fact, I explained to Mr. Arvidsson, it would be either the most ironic or the most disingenuous thing that I've ever seen, where this park board gave an easement to the highway department to avoid a traffic situation at Lowry and the parkways by elevating the road 60 years ago, and now for those same people to waive the same easement and recreate the traffic jam and bring 6 roads back to at grade. As Mr. Steinhoff says, he concludes that the easement at grade would unreasonably interfere with the park board's use of the parkways. It is likely unconstitutional, at least as applied to highways built within a permanent highway easement encumbering land owned by fee interests. So I think what I want to impart to this board is that it is your land, it's your fee interest. Whatever easements were granted before were granted for a purpose of accommodating traffic that went through that easement, and it was a highway easement. And in fact, probably the most ironic thing is the project office, when we had a conference, cited an 1895 case that said a highway easement is expansive. In fact, that case, the Supreme Court said that the highway easement would not include a train easement in the same easement. And we have light rail. Back then, people got around on heavy rail. So whatever they've said, and this is why it's important, because as I read the draft EIS, they're kind of saying because the park property was degraded and the easement was given, that therefore there will be a de minimis effect on parkland. In essence, they're saying, well, you so degraded the parkland by the 1962 easement that really we can do anything we want in your parkland. And I just have to tell you that the Malkerson firm firmly disagrees with that analysis, as do I. And I would point out that you're at a very critical way, because the draft EIS makes the suggestion, as Mr. Arvidsson points out, that somehow they think that at this point a preliminary de minimis or use or temporary occupancy is anticipated. You commissioners need to know they're saying that their proposed design is de minimis, and if that's the case, you won't have any say in this project. So if this board believes that design is appropriate, then you can move ahead. If it does not, I would say now is the time to raise your voice. And that gets to my last point that, and Secretary Ringgold would be good at this. This board in another iteration faced an issue like this on Southwest LRT. And what I came upon the research just today as I was researching this for you, Commissioner Benny, was this resolution 2013-282. It's been passed out to the commissioners. Mr. Bruce Chamberlain was the Assistant Superintendent for Planning at the time. He had Mr. Schroeder's position. Jennifer Ringgold also worked on this project at the time, so she's got a lot of institutional knowledge, and there were some after actions on that as well. But the board, and it's really a longer document, but there's a number of whereases that are important to this, but on what's, actually I'm missing 2 pages of whereases because it went on quite a while. There was the board really stated, yes, it's kind of, they're in here just in a little different order. But the conclusions, if you go to the second page of the document, which is 4, it outlined 4 circumstances. And I would say at this point, you're almost, I'll defer to Jennifer on this, but at this point, you're almost where this board was in 2013, looking at a design, saying, should you accept it or not? And the board at that time, if you look at this in my handwriting column on page 4, numbers 1 through 4, outlined 4 different options that the board would say would be considered. There was a deep tunnel, a shallow tunnel, how it would affect the Kenilworth Channel. And basically the board at this time came to a conclusion that, no, you have to separate, the park function, trail, and other things from the rail function. But it's very, very critical, I'd say. Anyway, that's my report. Maybe Ms. Ringgold Secretary Ringgold would have some other comments about what happened in 2013 and subsequent years. So I might add that the board wrestled with this for quite a while. There was a municipal consent function. I think Jennifer was at the same meeting I was at with Mayor Hodges and Superintendent Miller, and so you're about to embark on quite a journey here, potentially.
Thank you for the summary and the history. I don't want to take questions just yet, but Secretary, do you have anything to add at this point, or maybe during question and answers after the next presentation?
Chair Benny, Commissioners, I'll probably be better at questions as I'm trying to remember. I do want to point out, though, on page 3, which actually ends up being kind of the back page, page 3 of the packet. There's a whereas that talks about Section 4F1 of the Federal Transportation Act requiring finding no feasible or prudent alternatives in order to use parkland. And I remember that being something that we spent a lot of time on. So by the time this resolution was coming forward, the draft environmental impact statement had been out. We had given comments on it, and we were in more detailed conversations with the project office. And there had been additional work to look at different tunnel options, because that wasn't part of the original draft environmental impact statement or the original alternatives. And we were really pushing hard at the time on that aspect of 4F, trying to articulate that there might be better options that would solve for the issues that we were articulating. So I think that resonates with me in addition to some of the options and the positions that were being taken in the resolve clauses. That is something that's really important. I will say that staff and President Forney have been far more engaged with this than we were able to be engaged with Southwest LRT, and has already gotten, I think, the board probably to a better spot than we were able to get to, because one of the concessions out of where we landed with the Southwest LRT was being able to get into a MOU related to our future engagement and being in that design component of it. So you've already gotten a great distance. Now it is just determining if and how you want to articulate the next distance. We weren't able to get final agreement with the city on municipal consent, so we were kind of on our own toward the end, going after 4F. If you're able to be in a spot where you and the city are in agreement on municipal consent and you can both fight for that same thing, that's a strong position in addition to 4F.
Great, thank you. And with that, I'd like to ask Director Arvidsson to come up and, thank you. 2 minutes. I'm not a multitasker, secret's out. So we do actually have the public hearing, so thank you for all the help remembering that. So I'd like to open the public hearing, and it's public hearing for Clinton Field Park Improvement Concept Plan. And we have one speaker signed up, Jason Chavez, and if it's Councilmember Jason Chavez, I would like to use that title, but.
I
saw him in the hallway.
If we could, someone could see if he's out there. I don't know if it's that Jason Chavez or not. Oh, and we should present first. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
And before we'll start the presentation while we look for the speaker. Sorry about that. So, would somebody please move the resolution then for discussion?
I will move Resolution 2024-135, resolution approving a concept design for Clinton Field Park improvements.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to ask the project manager, Bianca Paz, to begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here to present the concept plan for Clinton Field Park improvements. Clinton Field Park is in the Southwest Service Area, District 4. It's in the Whittier neighborhood, a few blocks from the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. It's sandwiched between the 35W and high density housing. On the north borders with some family homes, and the same as across the 25th Street over here. In the same neighborhood, we have a couple other projects going on too at Whittier Park. We are planning the renovation of the playground and adding a new multi-use court, and also the 28th Street Todd Lot. The park, the existing amenities at the park are 2 half basketball courts, a playground, they're both heavily used, and an unused sand volleyball court, and an open grass area that has been used for open games. And there are beautiful mature trees that we're looking to protect. Also, what is characteristic of this park is on 4th Avenue and 25th Street, there's a steep slope that there is existing chain link fence that to keep balls, going to the street, but also this produce some visibility, issues. And as I said, the entrance are, on the corners. We would like to improve that accessibility. And as I mentioned, protect the existing trees at the park. The proposed plan in the approved Southwest Master Plan recommends the addition of a few amenities. The multi-use courts, 2 of them, adding, instead of the half basketball courts, adding a full court, keeping the playground, potentially expanding it, and also recommends terracing the park to gain more area, but as well to improve that visibility from 4th Avenue and 26th Street. The current funding available is $400,000 that comes from Park-like Dedication Fund. That is, we heard the interest from the community to have a multi-use court, especially for futsal, which is soccer, and bike polo in a hard surface court. So that will be assigned to that. But we have to consider, once we start, the design and the construction of this court, how it's going to impact the rest of the park. And as we see, we have more funding coming in 2026 and 2027. So we have to plan the overall design of the park and propose some phasing. So the first phase would be the construction of the multi-use courts. We were in conversations with the Futsal Society and Bike Polo Group, who were supporting and advocating for the construction of these courts. There's a need, there's youth in the neighborhood that are currently using, playing futsal at Whittier, and they would like to have more open other locations in this neighborhood to play futsal. And also the bike polo group who plays in, they play in South Minneapolis. They were trying to find another location for the use of, to be able to play. However, we did different studies, and the bike polo court that they were looking for, it's around 110 by 70 feet, which is pretty large and doesn't fit in this park. We also have to consider stormwater management features to collect, because we're adding impervious surface with these courts. So we have different conversation studies and to review plans with those groups. Also, we engage with the Whittier elementary school staff, and we attend the different open houses, and we're at community events to talk to people about the design of the courts. And with Whittier Alliance, the neighborhood association, also help us to do knocking around the housing around the park. And we have an online survey so we had a couple of options so people can provide input on those. So the main key points was that this park, people would like to see more picnic tables and benches, like a gathering space, to keep the trees shade, but also add more trees, have a shade structure, a community garden. That we heard that a lot, that people like to have a community garden here. Add native plantings, planting, a group gathering space, keep the drinking fountain, provide a full basketball court, and also there's a desire for having a pickleball court, which is not in the master plan right now. When the master plan was done, also the pickleball court wasn't very popular at that time. So, but most of the amenities and the key points was reinforce what we had in the recommendations we had in the master plan. So after conversations with the groups, for the design of the courts, we also determined that the site, we were able to do one court for futsal. It doesn't meet the desired size of the bike polo court, but potentially could play bike polo or any other activities in the same court. So after receiving feedback on this multiple concept, we got a preferred concept plan that also was modified with the feedback we received, trying to put together what people like from those different concepts, and using the recommendation of the master plan, MPRB staff recommendations and input on the design. And so this is the final concept plan that we're proposing for, when more funding become available in 2026, 2027, we can continue, but the first phase would be the development of the court, just development court. This plan proposes a full basketball court on the south side, at circulation and access path on the 25th Street. There's a basin, stormwater basin, that will collect the runoff from the two new courts. Here's the futsal court. It will be fenced around. We're adding more trees, also to create some walk-up, it's a circuit or spaces for people to walk around. The main, the picnic shelter has been located in the middle, kind of like a focal point, also to create a gathering space, and next to the community garden with picnic tables and an orchard next to it. And also that provide visibility to the playground, which is roughly the same size as the existing playground. It just changes the layout. But it will divide into 5 to 12-year-old with 2 to 5-year-old play equipment. We're adding a grill. We heard that people would like more grills. That some of these details could be added when funding is available. So we plan to go back to the community when for the design, a specific design of the playground, and to select play equipment. But for now, is the first phase, as I said, is for the multi-use court or futsal court. So here are some images, how it will look like, adding more, more trees and native planting. This would be the entrance on the southwest corner. And this would be the entrance on southeast corner from 25th Street. Here's a view of the court. As I mentioned, it will be fenced to protect ball going to the street. Also, we would take the fence from this corner out because this will be the basin. That will allow to create more visibility from that corner and open, the park. And we'll keep the fence also along 25th Street. Here are some images, adding seating, more trees for shade. There's another views of the community garden. The picnic shelter, this is a proposal. We have to, when funding becomes available to build the picnic shelter, we might get more feedback on the design, specific design and details of that. And here's a full basketball court as well. This is what would be the first phase of improvements, where we have the fundings available for. That's the futsal court with a fence and create a provisional walking path. So everything else will stay for now for this first phase. If the concept gets approved, the construction documents, we plan to complete the construction documents this summer and begin the project out this fall, and construction, depend on the bids, could be this end of fall or potentially summer. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Thank you. And I think if you would stay right there for a minute, because we have no other public speakers or speakers for the public hearing. So I'm going to close the public hearing, which I kind of accidentally opened already. So, and with that, are there questions regarding this resolution that we have in front of us? Commissioner Schaefer.
First of all, I just want to tell you thank you for your perseverance in this project. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs, and I think the community is really excited to get this moving ahead, so thank you. Have you heard any in the initial feedback? I know the picnic shelter is not up for implementation right now, and you mentioned you were going to do more community engagement. Have you heard anything in regards to the picnic shelter at this point, A or nay within the community? I know that some of my other District 4 parks that have had these shelters in particular, I think of Franklin Steel, have had to actually remove their tables underneath for safety reasons. And so I'm just curious if you had heard anything in this initial feedback.
Commissioner Schaefer, I haven't heard, or we haven't heard during community engagement any feedback on that. I mean, we heard that they wanted to have a picnic shelter and more shade. So we haven't heard any concerns about that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments? Well, thank you so much for the presentation. It was great, and it's exciting to move this forward if we approve the resolution. So the resolution in front of us is 2024-135. All of those in favor of approving this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. So with that, we'll go back to the item that we were discussing before, which is the resolution related to the Blue Line extension. And now I'd like Mr. Director Arvidsson to come up. And I'm sorry if there were spoilers by the other presenters. That doesn't seem right, because I know you've done a good job preparing a presentation for us, but sometimes we might need to hear things 7 times, so.
Oh, Chair Benny, no spoilers yet. Thanks for
Okay.
the opportunity. Again, everyone, Adam Arvidsson, Director of Strategic Planning. I'm going to walk through some information that is essentially a summary, a draft summary at this point, of a voluminous document that's a really key milestone in the Blue Line Extension project. So I'm going to do a quick revisit of the overall project timeline and the points where MPRB can touch that process. And then we actually have some guests from the Metropolitan Council who are going to give an overview of the environmental, the supplemental draft environmental impact statement, or SDEIS, And then also give some additional new views of the Lowry Station area design so that we make sure just everybody's on the same page with how that area functions. And then I will give an overview of the comment letter itself. So just to start, MPRB has been involved in this project. I think as Secretary Ringgold correctly stated, there's been significant involvement by MPRB in several different venues. I did talk about this a little bit when I presented to the board on June 5th of this year earlier. And then just the next big piece in the process is that comments on the SDEIS are due on August 6th of this year, which is why this meeting and the following meeting are the times that you will need to discuss this and move forward. So the timeline, the project timeline through some of the kind of environmental approval process is that, we are here right now. The SDEIS was published and we're working on those comments taking place. The project office will be hosting a public hearing on the SDEIS soon, which is one of the ways that the general public can engage with the process. Kelsey Young from Metropolitan Council will talk about other ways the public can generally engage with the SDEIS. And then following the SDEIS, there will be plans released for municipal consent. There were some notes about municipal consent earlier this evening by Councilmember Vita. Municipal consent is afforded to the cities, not to the park board. But as I mentioned in my previous presentation, we have been working to try to coordinate some form of 4F along with the municipal consent so that we're not the last ones to the decision-making table in another year or so. That's still a bit of a work in progress, but just know that even after the SDEIS process that we are in right now, the summer and fall will involve another round of approvals, as it were, by local agencies. With that, I'm going to turn it over to some Metropolitan Council staff. I'm going to invite, I think, several people up to join me here. Kelsey Young is going to be the primary presenter. Kelsey is an environmental professional with the Metropolitan Council. And let me get Kelsey's presentation going, and then I will turn it over. And Kelsey will introduce other staff as needed. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm Kelsey Young, Environmental Manager with Metro Transit. And thank you for the opportunity to present about the supplemental draft EIS and draft supplemental 4F evaluation. I'll touch on a little bit of project history, and then we'll also include a design overview of the design coordination to date. So for a little bit of project history, the Blue Line Extension project has been under development for well over 10 years, and the current phase of the supplemental draft environmental impact statement builds on previous phases of environmental review, including the draft environmental impact statement in 2014 and the final environmental impact statement and record of decision in 2016. The previous phases of environmental review did include a 4F evaluation as well. And then in 2020, the Met Council and Hennepin County issued a statement on advancing the project without using freight rail right-of-way. So that kicked off a route modification study that included many phases of public engagement and outreach, and our coordination with the Federal Transit Administration, who's our lead federal agency, who determined that a supplemental environmental impact statement would be warranted, and along with that, an update to the 4F evaluation. So now we are at the phase of the supplemental draft environmental impact statement is now published, as others have touched on. To orient us to the previous phase of the project briefly, and the current alignment that is the focus of the supplemental draft environmental impact statement. Shown in blue is the build alternative that is the focus of the supplemental draft EIS. It's maybe a bit hard to see on this screen, but roughly the northern third of the project remains on the same light rail alignment as our previous phase of the project. And then from there, the light rail alignment shifts onto County Road 81, also known as Bottineau Boulevard. And then in the Minneapolis area, several alignments were considered, but the primary alignment, the build alternative that is the focus of the SDIS that we compare the no build alternative to, is shown here on screen. And so the project includes the light rail stations, pedestrian bridges and other facilities, bike facilities, and several park and rides. So what's key to understand about the build alternative that is the focus of the SDIS and the 4F evaluation is that this route builds on the Corridor Management Committee recommendation from last fall in September 2023 that included the basics of the design as well as the station locations. And coming out of the route modification process, we were studying an elevated version of the Lowry Station up closer to North Memorial Hospital, but at the elevation of the bridges that go over the parkway. And based on extensive input from MPRB, we reconsidered that option and have developed a design that includes the Lowry Station at the grade down below the bridges. So we'll walk through that design to make sure everyone's on the same page about the basics of that design that we are evaluating. The purpose of the SDIS is to evaluate those changes to the project. We study social, environmental, and economic impacts and benefits of the project, as well as the Section 4F impacts. And the basic premise of the SDIS is that there are significant changes to the project corridor and new impacts and benefits since the previous phase of environmental review. So that's the phase that we are in now. And on the National Environmental Policy Act process, our next step will be to develop a supplemental final environmental impact statement that concludes our NEPA process, and that will also conclude our 4F process. So more information here about our 4F related steps. The Park Board members are likely very well familiar with this, but just to cover that, the purpose of Section 4F is to protect recreation and historic properties from conversion to transportation use. Property ownership and land considerations certainly are an important piece of that. But the other critical piece of what we look at is related to the activities, features, and attributes of the park property. So what is presented in the SDIS and the draft Section 4F evaluation focuses on the recreation piece of the recreation considerations related to Theodore Wirth and Victory Memorial Parkway Park. And what is presented in the SDIS and Section 4F is FTA's anticipated pathway of de minimis. What that means is that de minimis determination has not yet formally been made, but FTA, the federal agency, needs to announce that anticipated pathway in order to afford an opportunity for comment. So that's the purpose of that comment period that we are in currently. And we know that there are likely comments from MPRB or any considerations, requests from you all of what we should consider further before FTA formally makes that de minimis determination. So we know that there are things that we need to further coordinate about. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Ryan Crounser to walk us through the basics of the design.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'll spend just a few minutes walking through the currently proposed design at the Lowry Avenue Station, which is within the park that Kelsey was just explaining. Just a little bit of history. About a year ago, project staff was in front of this body explaining and proposing a very different alignment for the Blue Line extension. It was an aerial bridge that was not welcomed, as I have listed here. So we spent about a year now going through a different process. We got the stakeholders together and we led a workshop series to come up with the current at-grade build alternative that's in the SDIS. Since that time, we've advanced design. We are over 30% along in the design level of the plan, which includes input from stakeholders, including Park Board staff. They've had a heavy influence on the design to this point. And we certainly anticipate further coordination post the SDIS comments that we'll receive from this body and many other agencies and public this month. So I'm going to walk you through, I have three slides of photos. These are hot off the presses, although this one is an aerial photograph of the existing conditions, so there's nothing new or exciting about this. You'll see the park is right in the middle of this image. We're looking straight north. So Theodore Wirth Parkway is on the bottom in the center. Victor Memorial Parkway is on the top center of this slide. You can see the two recently constructed West Broadway Avenue bridges that span over the parkway and Lowry Avenue. So the next slide here is representing that at-grade option. I'm just going to flip back and forth. So admittedly, the drawings produced to date have a lot of layers and a lot of colors and provide some level of confusion. So as a three-dimensional representation, what you can see is the park's in the middle again. You can see in red that nice granite chip pavement of the parkway jogs around under two new bridges. So there's proposed, this bridge here and this bridge here are two new bridges that provide much more space through the parkland to allow the light rail to come down the grade and the parkway to sneak around. So I'm going to flip back and forth a few times. So you can see where what's right now today is this berm where West Broadway hits the existing bridges, turns into two new bridges. What's also important to realize here is the very center of the page, there's more open park space. Because the parkway is jogged around the light rail station, there's a larger expanse of park. There's an issue that Adam will talk about later. The parkway then goes on to what currently is not parkland, which is an open issue that we're open to resolving, but Adam will talk more about that. In the center there, you can see the light rail station in yellow. Those are merely just colors to identify where the station is. We're not proposing yellow canopies. That's merely a diagram. So the light rail itself is sandwiched between those two directions of West Broadway. So this is a top-down view. I've rotated north just slightly, so the north arrow is in the upper left-hand corner. A couple of other attributes of this site is in this dashed blue line is a 4-foot diameter water main owned by the city of Minneapolis. We're currently not proposing to relocate that. That sits about 5 feet below the surface. You can see then the orientation of the station with the parkway jogging around the station. I'll turn it back over to Kelsey.
Thanks, Ryan. So the purpose of this meeting is for you all to weigh in on the anticipated comments on the SDIS and specifically the 4F evaluation. So we anticipate that you all will be weighing in during this comment period. In addition, we do expect that there will need to be continued coordination with MPRB via staff and potential future coordination at this board regarding the design. And we anticipate those next steps would want to be informed by your comments, additional evaluation or studies or things that you want us to explore further or technical analysis, what have you. So we will continue that work on, and as Adam indicated, we plan for that work to continue on in the fall. The next phase of FTA formally making a Section 4F determination, the timing of that would be dependent on that coordination. So we will plan to bring that work forward when it seems that we are ready to reach a conclusion about the park's activities, features, and attributes. That de minimis pathway does lean on that outcome or that conclusion that the park's activities, features, and attributes are not adversely affected. So we welcome your comments about that de minimis pathway as well as specifics about what you would like us, an FTA, to consider related to the park activities, features, and attributes, and how the project would affect the park. A formal step in the process that is forthcoming will be after FTA formally issues a Section 4F determination, that there would be a request for concurrence from this body on that decision. And as Adam mentioned, we are accepting comments through a number of avenues. So this message is perhaps for not just for the MPRB board, but for the general public as well, that we have a number of opportunities to comment on our project website. And so people can go there for more information.
Thank you, Kelsey and Ryan. Let me go back to my presentation. So I'd like to do a quick walkthrough for the commissioners about what is currently contained in the draft comment letter that was prepared primarily by staff. In order to try to digest this thousands of pages of documentation down into digestible format that really touches on parks and impacts on parks, I've tried to create a variety of different themes that hopefully within which can guide that. That's not to say that these are the only possible themes we want to comment on. So the reason why we're here, and we'll be here again in 2 weeks, is so that you all can have input on that letter and what its content is. I do want to say that my review and staff's review has been driven by a few key policy items. So the MPRB mission, of course, as we understand, it's there on the wall, is to permanently preserve, protect, maintain, improve, and enhance our facilities. Parks for All has several goals and strategies that really talk about this question, prioritizing the preservation of historic, cultural, and scenic resources, as well as caring for those resources. And also in Goal 4, creating system-wide connections for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit riders. And Goal 5, Strategy 3 is about supporting year-round multimodal, vehicular, non-motorized, and shared mobility options, specifically around access to the grand rounds. So you can see we do have kind of two things working in concert together, and I think a lot of this commentary is to try to ensure that if there are going to be transit connections to parks, that they are done in a way that also is in line with our mission and the strategies to care for those resources. I will note that there is a Park Board adopted master plan for Worth Parkway, including the intersection at Lowry. It's not specific about what that should look like. It does envision a, quote, reconfigured intersection, including ideally the removal of entrance and exit ramps to be considered. So that intersection was revised kind of according to those principles when the Broadway bridges were reconstructed. But I would interpret that the master plan is suggesting that there's more that we could do in terms of the amount of access to the parkways from other county roadways. So the comment letter that is in your packet and publicly available on the website really has two main pieces. There is the main letter, which is really a narrative description of the Park Board's potential requests of the project office. So again, in essence, what we are doing is that the project office has put out a document, and we are responding to that document and trying to be as specific as possible with how we want them to act. And then after that, there's a comment tabulation, which has 65 specific things that at least I found that are keyed to those SDEIS page numbers. And maybe there are more. If we want to expand that tabulation, that's also something that we can do. So within the main letter, there are 4 themes. One of those themes is the FTA's Section 4F determination, which Kelsey just spoke about a moment ago. There is, of course, the design of the Lowry Station area. One of the themes is about land ownership and jurisdiction. And then lastly, ped bike access, specifically further down the corridor along Broadway near North Commons Park. So I'm going to very quickly kind of talk about what my interpretation and feeling of the SDEIS is or is not doing well, and then what the comment letter is requesting of the project office specifically. And generally those requests on this presentation are going to be shown in that blue, bold, underlined text. So under the FTA Section 4F determination, frankly, I think there's a lot of confusion around what the actual determination is. It's been unclear to me until reading all the way through the document to Appendix 8, and then having a conversation with project office staff that a determination hasn't actually yet been made, because there are numerous instances within the document that says it's a de minimis or a preliminary de minimis determination. So I think it's safe to say we believe that it is too early to make a determination of any kind on Victory Worth Parkway or the Grand Rounds Historic District. That we would request that there really be a clarification right now that a determination has not been made. That may be the case. I trust that that is the case in working with project staff, but I don't think it's explicit in this environmental document, and it needs to be much more clear. Theme B, the design of the Lowry Station area. As Kelsey and Ryan noted, an early flyover is not part of the project. I think that's a good idea from input from you earlier. The current concept does feature some positive interconnections that our design staff see between parks and transit. And there is a potential reduction in commuter vehicle and truck use of the parkways, because some of those accesses would be revised to take trucks and commuters off of the parkway. Currently, it serves a little bit like a clover leaf exit entrance ramp between Bottineau and Lowry. However, it does include, as we all know, an at-grade light rail crossing of the parkway and the associated trails. It's certainly my opinion and staff's opinion that the SDIS does not provide an adequate analysis of the impacts of that crossing. Whatever we feel about that crossing, there is not much in the SDEIS to talk about it. And so the comment letter does include a specific list of additional requested data for that particular concept, and also asks for the exploration of additional alternatives with similar additional requested data. So what we are asking is for an iterative design process that would look at some other ideas and then analyze all those ideas on a similar baseline around some of these impacts that we might feel could be the case on parks. So again, that's what is in the letter at the moment. Theme C, Council Rice talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm just going to touch on it briefly again. I think there's a big topic here, a theme about land ownership and jurisdiction. The SDEIS does affirm that MPRB is the official with jurisdiction over this park area. That's really important because sometimes some of these parks look like they're city ownership, you know, but they kind of are ours because of the charter, and then often at the last minute, like we're suddenly not the owner. So I think the SDIS affirms that correctly. It's an important first step. However, as Council Rice explained, it does assert the project's right to construct light rail within an existing highway easement. The SDIS does not include also any analysis of the impact of moving the Grand Rounds Parkway off of park board land onto different land owned by we don't know who, as is proposed in the current design. So there's no analysis of the recreational impact of that reality. So what the comment letter does currently is it certainly does not concede that the project may by right use the highway easement for rail purposes. Obviously, the Malkerson letter goes even further as to why that we would not concede that point, but the letter certainly does state that we're not willing to agree with the project office on that point. The comment letter also makes several specific land-related requests. Number one, it asks that any project elements that are within the easement have to be considered improvements on parkland, regardless of the easement. The parkland is underneath, so improvements would inherently have an impact on the parkland itself. So we have to be thinking about that as impact on parkland, not a sort of exemption because there may be, or may not be an easement. The letter asks for a commitment to, at the end of the project, reduce the size of the transportation easement that exists today. It's entirely possible that after some revisions around the roadway intersections, some of the land that is currently under highway easement will no longer be needed by the county for its highway-to-highway interconnection. If that is true, we would like the land back. Also, a commitment that the parkway, at the project conclusion, whatever design is ultimately selected, exists on MPRB lands, just like the rest of the Grand Rounds Parkway system. And if that means that it's going to exist on lands that are not currently Park Board owned, we need to have the project office commit to making sure that that underlying land ownership is in the hands of MPRB. Because MPRB is the legacy landowner of the Grand Rounds Park system, and that has to be made whole. So these are specific requests within the comment letter. And then on theme D, which I think is also an important one, though it doesn't have to do with the Lowry Station, which is obviously a very big topic. But we have been working further down the line within Minneapolis on the Broadway commercial corridor area with city staff and project office staff to make sure that the rail corridor doesn't become a barrier between neighborhoods to the north of Broadway and to the south. So we've been pushing for additional crossings at multiple blocks and having those be safe crossings. The SDIS right now does not adequately represent the desired crossings that have been discussed in some of the project team meetings, especially between Penn and James, where we have multiple parks both north and south, and neighborhoods with very small parks north of Broadway, where all the big parks like Willard and North Commons are south of Broadway. That disconnection would be a significant equity issue. So those broken ped bike connections already exist in an area that we know, according to Trust for Public Land data, has access to fewer acres within a 10-minute walk than other parts of town. So if we exacerbate and lengthen those walking distances to large parks like North Commons, that is directly an environmental justice impact, and none of that is enumerated, tabulated, or discussed within the SDEIS, and I feel that it needs to be. Therefore, the comment letter does request clear delineation of crossings and connections and a more detailed analysis of impacts, including the environmental justice impacts in this location and potentially at Lowry as well. The comment letter also requests an extension of the current project limits all the way down to North Commons, especially along James and Knox, so that those connections that are so important for people moving from north of Broadway to the south or from the James Avenue station to North Commons are complete and don't end in the middle of the block with someone else left to pick up the last little bit. So this is a pretty small ask within a large project budget, so we want to see those project limits extended. So the approval process here for this letter, and again, the commissioners can do this a different way if you choose to, but what I suggest, obviously, is that I'm presenting to you here tonight. If during the discussion there are some minor housekeeping suggestions or items or clear consensus topics, I can work those into what I would call like an omnibus staff amendment for the next one. But if there are things that generate a lot of discussion different ways, things that are not necessarily consensus, then I think it's best that a commissioner-driven amendment come forward before the next meeting or tonight if you choose to operate that way. On July 19th, when the next board's agenda comes out, the omnibus staff amendment will be made public at that time. It would essentially be a redlined version of this document to show all the things that I think I heard from you or all the things that maybe I noticed were mistakes. And we'll get them into that redlined document version so that everyone, including the public, is seeing that those sort of staff-driven changes. And then obviously you have your deadline under board rules for commissioner amendments. And then at the July 24th full board, I would ask someone to move the staff amendment, if everybody's okay with it. And then also there can be a discussion about those other commissioner-driven amendments. And then the last thing is, between July 25th and August 6th, which is the deadline, I get to clean up that whole document and make sure that it's signed by President Forney and transmitted appropriately. So with that, I know it's a head full. I will stand for questions and discussion, and I think certainly Met Council staff are also willing to stand for questions, and I'll maybe try to direct traffic if I think that they're better to answer that. Otherwise, you can answer them directly. I'll turn it back over to you, Commissioner Benny.
Thank you so much for that. That was, I think, clarifying and helpful. And I would actually like to call on other board members here and just also acknowledge there are other people that also spoke this evening, and I think everybody's here in the room one way or another. So with that, I'll call on Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, Chair Benny. I have a couple questions for the Blue Line staff based on things that they had said in their presentations. If they were willing to, I believe, sorry, Miss Young and Mr. Crown, sir, am I saying your name correctly? I'm curious, how did park staff, I believe you used the phrase, heavily influence the second design?
Commissioners, Adam is part of a weekly issue resolution team meeting where we meet with City of Minneapolis staff and Adam as well. And that is a venue where we talk about design advancement. We've also had several meetings specific to this area and the Section 4F piece with Adam as to inform and develop the design as well as the initial information that was that's presented in the SDEIS.
Okay.
Anything?
Thank you. Yeah, so that's at a weekly meeting, yeah.
Yeah, Chair Benny, Commissioner Thompson, yes, staff participates in this process in sort of an iterative design ideation, right? And so we're looking at things and playing with them, and they change and evolve almost weekly. When we got to the point of kind of reviewing this set of designs in more detail, there were additional staff besides myself in the planning division that were looking at trail interconnectivity and environmental impact and things like that too. But again, we continue to see this very much a work in progress that was guided by your reaction to the flyover some time ago, and will be further guided by this process on the SDEIS commentary.
Thank you. Again, for Ms. Young and Mr. I apologize. Crownser. I wrote it down and I don't trust my own pronunciation. Do you, I believe you had said that or it was implicit in your presentation that you plan on seeking a de minimis, that you perceive this as de minimis to parkland. Is that correct?
To clarify that the Section 4F pathway, the de minimis pathway, is FTA's decision. So just to clarify that that is FTA's anticipated pathway.
But you wouldn't present it if you didn't think it would, if you weren't going to make the case that it would be okay.
Right, and we understand that you all are seeking more information, and Park Board staff are seeking more information and coordination and work before, clearly before that determination, that you would feel comfortable at all with that determination, or perhaps that is not the case. But point being that we know that we have work ahead of us to protect the park's activities, features, and attributes.
Thank you. People may have noticed my response. I view this a little bit, a movie that I loved when I was a child comes to mind called Dumb and Dumber, because I feel like the flyover was really dumb, and this is dumber. As a Northsider, and I appreciate Councilmember Vita being here and speaking on this, it is incredibly disruptive. So many of my constituents were here. I think some are still in the room. It's challenging to see that station when you know how much work has gone in literally over a decade, and then you see something that is just to your neighborhood, to your constituency, to your community is so absurd. That I don't really know my own piles of things. I presented something as a resolution, sort of as Director Arvidsson had mentioned, if there was a commissioner to lead something, that I wanted to make public and hopefully get a chance to discuss with my colleagues now, whether it gets tinkered, maybe it's not ready for prime time, whether it gets tinkered with at another time, but I would hope to at least, if I need to move it, to discuss it at this moment. It came through yesterday at the deadline, just to have commentary. And I appreciate Director Arvidsson and everybody at the comment letter. This is not necessarily about the comment letter because it is larger than, as is already said, the blue line is larger, touch on different parks. But as it pertains to the Lowry Avenue station, I think we need something that has a little more bite to it, from my perspective as the district commissioner, and unfortunately my colleague, Commissioner Rucker, who lives even in closer proximity than I do to this location, can't be here tonight to speak to it. But I think we need to be a little more forceful in our comments, especially given that we have like a month's deadline. So I don't know if I've moved this or if people have it and they'd be willing to at least chat about it. I don't need to officially move it if we don't need to, but.
Well, let's since your buzzer just went off, let's see if there are other people who want to speak to where we are right now with the moved resolution and after the presentations. I know I have a few comments that I'd like to make. And so I think and I do want to address some of those concerns that are in the document that you provided ahead of the meeting deadline or the submittal deadline. But I don't know, Director Arvidsson, if some of these comments really are better suited to a commissioner amendment, if you could kind of let me know. But I guess I'm just going to kind of hit a couple spots here. There were some, at the beginning of, the document's very good, and I think it's hitting it's hitting the points, I think, well, and I think the feedback from the commissioners at the previous meetings and discussions. I think there's some places where it could be a little bit more forceful or direct. And I know, this is one government entity talking to another, and there's respect and all of that. But there's some things, I think, for clarification. So at the beginning, there's some discussion about one of our values is providing transit access to the parks, and that's true. But I think first and foremost, have that mission, and that mission's a big deal. And I think people gloss over mission statements often, but that's enduring. In fact, it was made better by the addition of the second paragraph as well, and I think that does come into play for this project. So if that could be made a little bit more forward, it's on page 1 of the letter specifically, and then it's discussed on page 2. And so the other thing is, I would say that we, if we're balancing out kind of the parkway continuity, but also with direct transit access, which is the way it's phrased in the letter, I think continuity wins over direct transit access. And I really do have some questions about just the location of the station at all. Maybe it's not really park related so much as to say, light rail does well with distance from station to station, and when it can get up to speed. In fact, I just got the chance to ride the light rail train in Seattle, and I used to work for that city for a brief period of time and worked on some of that, and they've been building out the system now, and I hadn't seen it. But there's a piece of it where you go out of the last station in downtown and you head to the university, and you're going in a tunnel because you're dealing with all the topography there. And that sucker goes fast because it's got about a 4.5 mile distance that it can travel uninterrupted. Now, we're not going to get that here in North Minneapolis up into Robbinsdale, but it seems to make way more sense to me to put the station near not at the park, but toward where the commerce is in the Robbinsdale area to serve the hospital. Okay. So anyway, I think that's maybe a bit of a digression, and I don't know how we can characterize some of that, but I can get a chance to make those comments publicly. So that said, the fact of the matter is, I think some of the direct access things that are important are some of the things that you discussed later in the letter with regard to North Commons and the other access points down from Broadway. Those are really, really important, and I'm so glad that you wrote them up the way that you did about access to acreage and all of that, and the Trust for Public Land. I will cut myself off at this point and call on President Forney.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not on this committee. I was involved with the Southwest LRT, but not on the board at that time. And we all know, excuse me, what a train wreck that is. But we were able to get the separation of the light rail from Cedar Lake Parkway. So there is no precedence for it to be running here at the Grand Rounds. So, but I think the most important thing is the fact that we did get the Melkerson letter and that we do have legal jurisdiction here. So I think that's the first thing that we need to, make sure that everybody's on the same page there. And I'm not sure, I believe that Vice President or Chair Abeni mentioned that if a station is inside the park, who is responsible for the maintenance of it around it and everything is not ours. So I believe that it should not be a grade because of just that, and myself, that particular issue. I am very, very concerned about the Cedar Lake East station because basically it is in a park, and that's going to be a real issue going forward. But I really appreciate Commissioner Thompson's resolution, and I hear the passion in it. There was a lot of passion around Southwest LRT, but we need to really ground ourselves in facts, and I agree that the vulnerability of that intersection is immense. But if we can find some actual data as to what is the fatality or the accident rate when an intersection like that occurs, I think is something we really need to have or seek an answer from that, from the project office. So I feel that, putting more detail into either Commissioner Thompson's or, like I say, when we go forward at our next meeting, to, defend the fact that, no, this should not be here running through our park system. So, although I have to say, I thank the project office. We all learned that, we needed to be at the table early, and I really appreciate that we have been, and that you are open to our input now, instead of at literally the end of the line. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to add a couple more things, and I apologize, but something that President Forney just said, and it was related to the station maintenance issues. But the other thing is, if also our letter could include some requests that any renderings that show any of the rail cutting through any parkland show the width of the right-of-way, but in addition to the right-of-way, according to what I know, any work on 50 feet on either side of the right-of-way requires permission from the Metro Transit. And certain types of structures and activities are not allowed. So they have the right-of-way, but in addition to the right-of-way, they have this extra area that requires their permissions. So again, that to me is a direct 4F impact, because it really is now really encroaching onto lands that are outside what there would be their easement area. And then I also really appreciate any idea of relocating or adding parkland. It has to be fee title ownership, so thank you. And we can't wiggle away on that. That's not negotiable. I will call on, actually, Commissioner Schaefer, I think. I'm not sure if I got that right, but.
Sure, I'll just say a few comments. And one is that the Southwest Light Rail, I think in these projects, we have to think of the cost-benefit ratio. And, the Southwest Light Rail, the verdict is still out on ridership. But I can tell you that parkland will be affected in perpetuity at that location with the Southwest Light Rail. And so it's still a pain that we're going to feel with when it opens. We're going to still continue to have issues, but we lost. We lost in one of the most protected areas of our system where you could ride a bike through wildlife corridors, et cetera, and it breaks my heart. So I will be supporting the north side in whatever direction the community wants to go, because I have lived it, and I know when the community's voice has not been heard. We were not heard, and I don't want the north side to not be heard. And so I will be watching and listening and learning of the details around this project, but I thank the staff for the combing through of this document and all of the details that you have put in. I will be supporting this letter. I guess I have one question is, Director Arvidsson, what do you hope to be the impact of this document?
Chair Benny, Commissioner Schaefer, broadly speaking, because this is one stage in still a very long design process, I hope that the impact of our letter continues to push the project office in a way that has less impact on parks, where we can maybe see some of those transit interconnection benefits that are in the comprehensive plan, while also not experiencing the impacts that many of you are enumerating tonight and have enumerated in this space before. This isn't, the design that's before you is not the last design, right? So I think I'm looking for guidance for myself in all of these meetings, these design meetings that I'm regularly a part of, and I'm looking for your guidance for the project office for how this project changes into something that is more palatable. I think there's some heavy bars here. I think we're asking for some big things, but I think it's okay to do that at this stage. Most tangibly and most immediately, I hope that this letter leads to the creation of additional design alternatives at Lowry and more data analysis of what the impacts of each of those design alternatives will be. That's specifically asked for in the letter, and I think that would be an important next step in an iterative design process.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just make one other quick comment, and that is, the first original design, we had a 4-story elevator that was going to be bringing people down and a big shadow. So I do think this is an improvement, at least on paper, until we work through it. But I also see some new problems that have arisen, and, we deal with transit stops right next to parks in District 4 in several locations, and they become an area that park keepers have to spend a lot of time and money and energy. Not money, but time and energy on keeping up, partly because of the nature of just a lot of traffic coming through. And so I just want to understand a big empty space by a transit stop may look nice and green on paper, but that brings a lot of maintenance issues for us as a managing body. So that to me is a big concern.
Commissioner Elper.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just have a few comments to make that I feel compelled after hearing from some of my colleagues. You know what really cuts off access? Highways. And I just, looking at this patchwork of roads here especially at Lowry, at the Lowry station, it just is so apparent how overbuilt it is in its current form. And so I am hopeful with this new design that it will take into account some of the mistakes that were made in the past by transportation planners and engineers and right size some of these, the amounts of pavement here. Another thing too, just to note, I'm kind of astounded. I think those bridges just were rebuilt. Is that correct? So I just can't not mention that. So that's unfortunate because it looks like they need to be rebuilt again. And then I also want to note, Commissioner Benny, that the Green Line actually added stations. It didn't take away stations. And I understand what you're saying about speed, but for reasons of equity, which I think is super important here, and so they added stations instead of doing exactly the opposite, which you are mentioned here. And then, let's see, and just because of safety, I also want to mention too, these Lowry and Broadway, I believe, are high injury network streets. And so when we're talking about safety for pedestrians and bicyclists, I mean, you know what really hurts bicyclists and pedestrians? It's drivers speeding in large vehicles. Speed by people driving kills bicyclists and pedestrians. It's not transit. When you look at what is killing people biking and people walking on our streets today, it's yes, we hear about transit, but that's because it's once in a blue moon. It's the everyday occurrence of people walking and biking who are getting killed by cars. So with that, I just want to say I will be recusing myself from this vote today due to my other position here. So I just had to make those comments, but I won't be voting on this. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, Colin. I just want to comment just quickly. I worked on the Green Line project, actually, and they did add stations, and I get why, totally. But this, I think the point of this station is actually to serve the hospital, so let's put the station closer to the hospital. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Chair Benny. I wanted to address just a couple of colleagues' things and then things that I heard. I want to thank Commissioner Schaefer for her support and in her comments, and I want to thank Commissioner Elper for the same. I don't want to be out over my skis on this one and have these words come back to haunt me, but if it was up to me, Highway 81 would be like the light rail, and because yes, it does have freeway-like conditions coming in. It absolutely does, and it makes Robbinsdale challenging as someone who's lived there for a very long time. You wait for the light. I would prefer it not be that way. But that is not for us to choose at this moment. I also wanted to just add, Mr. Tate is here often, and I see his sign, "How are the children?" And I'm always reminded the commentary about how many children live on the north side and around North Commons and around, Of course, North Commons is not, North Commons will be on this path, but it is also not far from Victor Memorial Parkway, which we're discussing as well. And I mean, the kids on bikes and the kids in the space and the light rail it's honestly like, it hurts my heart to think about all those things that are big challenges. That's why maybe I get a little intense about this particular crossing, because it's the one part that's within my jurisdiction to try to comment on. So I just don't want us to forget the fact that there are children on the parkway that would be having to cross at grade. And I mean, do we have to do a study to just empirically know how dangerous those kind of crossings are? Of course we know. So those are my only comments. I will not move this resolution right now, but I would hope that it would be something that would be discussion worthy and or integrated at some point in the next couple weeks. Just as I said, to have a little more clarity of like, you know, we can discuss it as a board, but say we're against this versus just talking about the challenges of a very lengthy letter through this 1,000-page document. Just has a resolution for or against, which I hope you'd be, you know, against. But that's, you know, I'll rally for my votes later. But I'm not going to be doing that, and of course I support the letter, so that's the last I'll say. Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, so first question for you, Director Arvidsson. So on the road, the parkway going off and on, off of Parkland, and the wording you use is this is the way it is and this is the way it must be. Heard kind of similar from Chair Benny, similar wording. And I understand that that's kind of has to be our natural take towards anything like that. But this is really a genuine question. What would be the real world consequences of 100 feet of road not being on parkland? I just really want to understand, because if this is something that could create possibly a really big difficulty, a really big problem, a really whatever thorn in this project, I would kind of like to be able to articulate those.
Sure, Chair Benny, Commissioner Olson, I'll try to answer from my understanding of real estate matters at the Park Board, but this probably edges a little bit into like real estate law and legal. So there might be a broader question to this either tonight or at some other future time. In my experience, we have found throughout our park system, because of wacky deed making in the early 1900s, that we don't always have fee title to parkland that the public thought was being held in public trust. And it's dangerous because there's opportunities for that land to then be either re-encumbered by original owners or for there to be restrictions on this board's ability to improve those properties in ways that the public wants. The land ownership underneath Victory and Theodore Wirth Parkways right now is very clean. It's a 300-foot wide swath of land that was deeded to the Park Board in the teens or 20s. Without underlying landowners, it is free and clear. It was later encumbered by an easement. The land just to the east on which the parkway is proposed, there may be dozens of owners over whom the county and Metro, and originally MnDOT and then the county also achieved an easement. And those owners never improved their properties because there was a highway built there. But there are still owners. And we don't have any idea what rights those owners may still have. So to stack an easement on top of an easement on top of a whole bunch of other owners, to me, feels like it puts the overall continuity and legacy of parkland in danger. And I think we try to have parkland be Park Board owned whenever we can. And we have properties that are leased from the school board that when they are willing to, we try to get them in fee title. Because that provides the public the most jurisdiction through this board, which then has sole authority over that property.
Great, thank you.
You can probably gather, I think it's pretty critical.
Okay. Okay, well then just to my general comments. you know, I feel like when we had the flyover discussion, we had some kind of reactionary takes to it, and we said, nope, not this, something else, and we have something else, and we're having some more reactionary takes based around kind of fear and a desire not to allow certain things within our park system. I mean, these grade crossings, we're using these big terms or whatever. Just the other day, Commissioner Alper and I were biking. I biked over one of these light rail crossings. It's not a big deal. I'm sorry, but it's just not. And as she said, it's fast cars. I feel way less safe going across an intersection of a road than I ever do going across a light rail crossing. It's just, I'm sorry, but we're reaching into territories of hyperbole that are not constructive for us here. Because, and this is going to be a question for Council Rice, what happens if we say absolutely not to an at-grade crossing? We're presented with some sort of tunnel option that will cost our constituents millions more, delay the project a lot more. Our constituents are transit riders, I would remind us. Not many of us up here, in fact, I don't know if any of us rely, except for maybe Commissioner Alper and I, on transit, so I think it's important to keep those folks in mind. A lot of time and stuff. So my question is, what happens if we see a tunnel and we don't like that option as well, and we don't like any of the options brought before us? I'm guessing some sort of lawsuit, something like that.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. How to answer that question? I mean, you're at the stage now where there are multiple design features. And if I could hearken back to the Southwest LRT resolution that a prior board passed, I think they asked for they basically had 4 positions, a deep tunnel, a shallow tunnel, an at-grade, and the board opined on all of them. And actually, I think you wound up with like a third option. I would say this, at least my advice as your legal counsel now for over 40 years, what is great about this park board is that your role is to deal with parkland. And that becomes the preeminent consideration on how you plan the system and the land that's been entrusted to you and how to use it, as opposed to the planners who want to build transit. That's on them in terms of what the cost is. When we did meet on the issue about the elevated, 4-story, whatever it was, or this cost, I asked the planners, was there a cost decision in this? And they said no, that one was the same as the other, or they didn't factor in what the cost was. So it wasn't like they lowered, went from the County Road 81 level to the Parkway because of a cost thing. They did it because of a planning function. So I don't know if that helps the answer. Mm-hmm. That's their, how can I say this? I think Commissioner Thompson's talked about, well, there might be some people who want, rapid transit, but that's not for this body to discuss. I mean, your body.
No, yeah, so my question was more around if we continue to see designs that we don't approve of, what's the legal process?
Oh, good question. Okay, that's it. I think that the tool 4F is extremely powerful. It's the 1966 Transportation Act that says that people in charge of parkland or other certain resources have the ability to say, no, this project is not compatible with park use. And unless they can show that there is a de minimis effect on the land, they can't have their project, or that the Federal Transportation Administrator has to say, make a finding and determination about whether it is de minimis or not. If the FTA or through their ancillary people make a finding, you can challenge that if you have strong enough opinion about that. And I might add that you're all familiar with Hiawatha Boulevard 55. That provision in the Federal Transportation Act of 1966 came almost as a direct result of what happened in those cases, because the State Highway Department was taking parkland. They were going to sever Minnehaha Parkway. Now they succeeded in their legal ability to do it, but the political pressure got to be so much that they had to make an accommodation to parkland. And that's happened in this community, and it's happened all around the country because at least now under federal law, parkland is preeminent when it comes to transportation matters. Transportation people just simply don't get to go through parkland.
So if I'm hearing correct, if we have continued opposition, unless there's some extraordinary measures, we could potentially stop the whole.
Yes, in my opinion, you could. Yeah, obviously, there are a number of plans that need to happen, but if the park board says, no, you're not crossing our land in this way, there'll be a fight.
Okay. I have some more stuff. Can I just go to my second one? Okay. And then, so I will say, you know, we're talking about, again, transit access, and we heard President Forney speak against a transit station that is next to one of our most popular beaches and will certainly be heavily used and heavily accessed. And so I would just, you know, we continue to say we have this goal, and I've heard a lot that we're, you know, pro-transit, you know, here, but it seems like every time there's a station we're opposed to it. I would just say that these sorts of stations are important. They do add connections. But overall, what I will say is that this letter, I think, is good. I think it's taking a hard look at what's going on. It's taking a strong look at our past positions and who we are as a park board and our rules and kind of our driving factors. And I think it brings them forward in a pretty easy, accessible, just straightforward way. I think that's important. But what it does is it also leaves open the door to this option or a different designed option. It doesn't shut that door like, you know, some other proposals we've heard. And I think that's really important as we look at potential major consequences for shutting more and more doors. And so I think overall I'm you know, fairly pleased with the letter. I mean, I would almost soften it often, you know, as is my want around transit issues. But I think for who we are as a park board, I think it's okay. I think it leaves the door open. And I think the requests for further information of, you know, what in different iterations of what it could look like are reasonable given various historical contexts. So thanks for this letter. I don't think I have at this point any major edits that I would make to it, just only a plea to our fellow commissioners, my fellow commissioners and our staff that we maintain an open mind on this and recognize the importance of public transportation in a climate crisis and for helping folks who don't have enough money to afford thousands of dollars in car payments a month get around. It's beneficial to our society as a whole. So I like that this is working towards a workable solution that makes everyone happy. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
President Forney?
Thank you. I'll just remind that with the Southwest LRT, there was a significant issue of us when we didn't want to grant things. Governor Dayton actually threatened to not fund us at all. So it's huge. And I just feel so excited that we're on a different page. I feel like, I know that Councilmember Vita is not here right this second, but we had 2 Hennepin County commissioners here this evening. We've had a former president of the city council who I believe are speaking the same language that we are. And so I really want to stress how important it is that how we can find a collaboration on what we're advocating for here. I'll just be very honest. I don't understand why we just don't tunnel all of our light rail. It bothered the heck out of me that, you know, when the original went downtown and wasn't allowed. When you consider our climate, et cetera, et cetera. But so tunneling, I think, is really the best option, and I would tunnel all the way down Broadway as far as I'm concerned. Which brings me to the point of the displacement, anti-displacement funds, and where it might be utilized, and if that can go towards any infrastructure changes. I'm just saying that, you know, something like tunneling all the way down Broadway would should we say, solve an awful lot of the worries of displacement. So I'm just throwing it out there as a conversation, so.
Chair, member, I believe you're referring to the new state funding for anti-displacement?
Yes.
Yeah, just for everybody's knowledge, the state gave $10 million in general funds this past session for the anti-displacement programs related to, essentially tied to this project. That, and they also created a governance structure for management of that funds that is managed outside of the project, but in parallel with the project. The governance board has not decided where those funding would go to, but from an infrastructure standpoint, the design and construction of a project like this would be funded by the project, and so I would consider the anti-displacement wouldn't be necessary for the construction and the design that's eventually settled on.
Okay, my understanding was 10 million and then something like a
Yep.
matching of 20?
Yes, I should probably introduce myself too. My name's Nick Thompson. I'm the
Nick.
project director for the Blue Line Extension and the deputy general manager of capital projects at Metro Transit. And so the state requirement of the statute is that the 10 million must be matched with an equal or greater sum from other sources. And so the sources can be a variety of sources. So those match funds have not been identified yet.
Unfortunately, I missed the last CMC meeting, and I didn't hear what the anti-displacement, but I just, maybe a creative way of dealing with things. Anyway, I'm just throwing it out there. Better to say it now than at some other point in time. So, yes, go ahead.
Chair Benny, Commissioner Forney, I just wanted to add to that, since the anti-displacement came up, the board that Mr. Thompson referred to, the Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Board, was constituted by the state as those members who participated in the original anti-displacement working group. So my name was in that document, so I sort of automatically got deemed by the state to be your representative for the time being. I've attended several of those meetings as that committee works through creating its own bylaws, which will then have some methodology for how membership is selected. And at that time, we will come to you, President Forney, to make an official appointment to that group, and it could be a staff member or anyone that you want. I just want you to know that group is working now, and I've been serving that group almost as sort of a stopgap till the bylaws are created.
Thank you.
Thank you. Although Commissioner Thompson's spoken 2 times as the commissioner with the Center District, please add your final thoughts.
Thank you. I did have a question about the logistics of obviously a plan that I don't support at the crossing. Is the cost of the bridges? Was the bridge that was literally just completed a year ago, would that be torn down or kept? Does anyone know? They're being both replaced. Brand new. Sorry.
Sorry. Welcome back. So
Welcome
there
back.
are 2 existing bridges out there today.
Mm-hmm. Brand new.
Brand new. Well, not nearly brand new. There are 2 new bridges being added to those 2 bridges. So there'll be 4 bridges out there under this proposal. One of the existing bridges will be cut off by a third to allow the width of the light rail tracks to go through. So 1 2/3 of the existing bridges remain as they are.
So it would be shut down and would recreate you'd have to be rebuilt. What does that cost? What did the bridges that are currently there, does anyone have any idea how much those cost? I believe it was
I don't have that with, we can get
Okay.
that project cost for you. That was a Hennepin County roadway project.
I believe I was told, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that project went through when this project was meant to go down the rail line, the BN, which I don't remember which rail owns it.
Yeah, it's the BNSF.
BNSF, right.
Monticello subdivision.
Is that correct, that that's partially why that 81 project was allowed to proceed in the timing that it did, and then it kind of piggybacked and is back over in this regard?
I'm going to jump in here, Chair.
Yeah,
Benny.
please.
Commissioner Thompson, at the request of President Forney, I had asked the project office to put together a timeline of how the previous and current project relate to the reconstruction of the Broadway bridges.
Yeah.
So that timeline has been provided to President Forney, and I can provide it to the commissioners at large, and that'll show when those different decisions were being made, and kind of how finally it was sort of cut. Like, the Broadway bridges were like out for bid, but yes, the corridor was still sitting on the BNSF at that time.
Mhm.
And then it happened, the corridor changed after that. So I can provide
Yeah,
that timeline
thank
to
you.
the board.
I think it would be useful for me personally and probably our colleagues, but I just know my neighbors and constituents would probably, it makes sense when you hear it from a high level, but when you're in it, you're like, why on earth would this be this and this money and that, this, that, and everything. So thank you. I would also just like to add a little bit of a comment of what one of my colleagues just said, and I take umbrage and I can't let it pass that I am and my constituents are tacitly being called reactionary and fear-mongering for our legitimate concerns. You can critique my position, but please do not put down the genuine concerns as being utterly dismissed under the phrase that was used. It was reactionary and fear-mongering. So please don't do that. Thank you.
All right, with that, I think we can go ahead and take this resolution to a vote. So all those in favor of approving Resolution 2024-138, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. And with that, I will adjourn the Planning Committee.
Okay, the time being 7:58, I will now call the Administration and Finance Committee to order. Can the Secretary please call the roll? Oh, we have added people. Do I need to add them?
Benny and Forney.
Yes, welcome.
Actually, Vice President Abeni.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
President Forney.
Here.
Co-Chair Thompson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Excellent. Would someone like to move our agenda?
I'm with the agenda for approval.
Thank you. Any comments on the agenda? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Would someone like to move our minutes?
I'll move the minutes of the Admin and Finance Committee of June 18th, 2024.
Fantastic. All those in favor of adding the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we've added those in. Now, we have a few fun items. Would someone like to move our first one?
I'll move Resolution 2024-137. This is a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation set the maximum property tax levy for the 2025 budget at an estimated amount of $90,872,000, an increase of 9.94%.
I am going to guess that we would like a presentation on this, or am I incorrect? No, yes, so Director Wiseman. Is Director Wiseman here? No. Poof. Should we pause on that, or are we okay with waiting?
Co-Chair
Yes.
Thompson,
Secretary Ringgold.
would you mind if I went and grabbed her?
I would not mind at all.
Thank
We
you.
can play tiddlywinks.
And as far as the approval of the agenda, I just noted that
Oh,
one of the items actually is not going to, has been pulled, correct? The veterans.
it was my understanding that that was originally going to go to the hearing full board, but Secretary Ringgold, do you have clarity?
I would like
believe
to
that's-
move that we reconsider the agenda for today. And then
Is
we
is
can
the
pull that
veterans-
item. Or do we want to go to it and then postpone it?
Co-Chair Thompson, so item number 2 on the agenda, the ask there is that it doesn't have to go to full board, you just have to consider it in committee.
Sorry.
That's exactly
And
right,
then
yes.
the third item, 2024-92, that's still the language from before, so that's the one that's coming
Yep.
back to you for
Yep.
tonight. So we would like the board, or the committee to consider all 3 of these items tonight.
So the agenda is good, we're good. We're just not moving it to full board later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wiseman. And thank you, Secretary Ringgold, for the clarification.
All right. Good evening, Chair Thompson and Commissioners. Before you is Resolution 2024-134 requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation set our maximum property tax levy. I'm going to just briefly go over these. These are charts that you saw on Monday night as well. So just as a reminder, our property taxes have risen 4.4% over the last 20 years, and over the last 10 years, it's 5.3% due to MPP 20, youth investment, and system equity investment. When we look at our general fund 5-year projections, we are showing 9.94% for 2025 and 7.24% for 2026. And again, these are some of the highest tax increases that we have asked for in the last 20 years. Included in this is our system equity investment. And in 25, we have Graco Park coming online, and in 26, we will have Upper Harbor Terminal coming online. And then we have Strategic Direction D, which has been on here as a board direction for, I think this is the third year. So we had a position funded in 2024, and we are asking for a position in 2025 and one in 2026. So now I want to go over in a little more detail than what I presented on Monday evening. So what makes up the changes for both 2025 and 2026? Because we are doing a 2-year budget this year, and so we will be adopting a 2025 budget and a 2026 plan. So tonight we're just dealing with the 2025 property tax for the 25 annual budget, but I wanted to show you 26 as well, so you have that information. So for the revenue side, we have the property tax increases of 9.94 and 7.24, which generate $8 million in 25 and $6 million in $6.5 million in 26. The youth investment one-time line here for both 25 and 26 is that the $2.6 million youth investment that came online, we've been slowly adding property taxes over the last several years, and we will not get to the $2.6 million until 2027. This year, ARPA dollars are done at the end of December 31st, 2024. So you'll see we are reducing the ARPA by $875,000, and it leaves a $520,000 gap that we will need to fill, or will need to pause or cut in order to fund that 520. And I'm showing this as a one-time cost because you as a board during our budget retreats did not have a desire to ask for that $520,000 in property taxes in 2025. So it's an item that we will need to talk through during the budget process. The citywide needs-based free and reduced cost programming, youth programming, that is an estimate based on expanding our free programming, not just at the 17 sites that we currently have, but doing it citywide and having it be a needs-based free and reduced cost program. And then there's just small other revenue changes that are happening in 2025. So on the expenditure side, you will see that The system equity investment is on here for the 560 and 600. So again, 25 is Graco, 26 is Upper Harbor Terminal, and then the strategic direction D showing that. And then our full-time wage and fringe of almost $4 million in 25 and 2.6 million in 26. And again, we are doing our reclassifications, our entity-wide market study. All of our unions will be expiring at the end of this year. So we have built in all of those things in our estimation for our full-time wage and fringe. And then our part-time wage and fringe, you'll see that we have some para changes. We have some wage adjustments in our part-time as well. Health insurance is expected to increase. Our cost of health insurance is expected to increase 6.5% in 2025, and we're projecting 5% in 2026. Workers' compensation and state family and medical leave and para eligibility are all state mandated changes to programs, and these are the estimated costs to our general fund budget to implement those changes. So the next section are our other expenditures. So the first line, the largest line with 1.1 million, is our annual inflationary increase for other expenditures. And we discussed how in the past 3-4 years, we have only been increasing other expenditures by 2%. And 1 year we increased it by 0. We held it steady. And so our buying power and our spending power in this day with inflation is definitely being impacted, and we are seeing it in our ability to do repairs and maintenance items. And so in this 5-year projection, we are increasing other expenditures by 4.5% annually until we can build up our spending power a little bit. Legal fees, we have an increase to legal fees. Our current budget for legal fees is about $756,000. The last 7 years, we have averaged about $1 million in costs, which is 1% of our general fund budget. The City of Minneapolis Attorney's Department is 21 million, or 3% of the city's budget. And so what this will do is it will increase it to the $1 million in year 2. So we're not doing it all in 1 year again. We're spreading it out between the 2 years. Tree purchases, we've started to fold that in based on the carbon credits, as well as the ARPA dollars for tree planting has ended. And so we need to support our tree planting within the general fund. And then we have 2 small items that came forward during the budget retreat: the park access analysis and IT managed services. So now I want to talk about fund reserves. Our general fund reserves are below our financial management policy of 5% of the expenditure budget. The MPRB must have a plan to close the deficit, or it would become an annual audit management reported item. And so you'll see we have 5 million with a little over 550 committed. So that leaves uncommitted of 4.4 million. And our expenditure budget requirement is 5.1 million. So we are $700,000 behind where we should be. And one thing about general fund reserves, this is our emergency fund for our general fund. In the recession, we had the state legislature cut our local government aid during the middle of the year without the ability for us to adjust for that. So we used fund balance then. The other times we've used fund balance are really for storms and significant storms that we have. And the most expensive one of recent was actually 2013, where we had the several storm event with the flooding and the mudslide on West River Parkway. We all remember that. It was $2.6 million that we had to spend. It was eventually reimbursed by FEMA, but the reserve is there to help us cash flow those type of emergencies. And the $2.6 million in 2013 would be about $3.5 million in 2024. Our Park Grant and Dedicated Revenue Fund accounts for resources designated for specific purposes through grantor requirements, donor requests, or board direction. So I'm showing our Park Grant and Dedicated Revenue Fund balance of $14.4 million, and that includes grants and donations. So most of this, or not most, a lot of this fund is donor and grant directed and can't be used for anything else. The board direction is around the O&M lottery proceeds, our Parkland Purchase Reserve Fund, and those are items. So for our O&M lottery proceeds, you have allocated those towards capital improvements in our regional parks, and a smaller amount that has been allocated to the natural resource management. And then the Land Purchase Reserve Fund is actually funded through a transfer from the general fund, and that is used for property acquisition along the river. I did not show the Dibble-Hornstein Park Dedication Fee Fund because that was enacted by the state legislature, and there is requirements on how that can be spent. So it is fully restricted and cannot be used for general operations. Our enterprise fund has a $3.3 million reserve, and of course our enterprise fund is our self-supporting fund, so no property taxes go towards that fund, and the reserves support capital rehabilitation, construction, or improvements in debt service. Our capital needs in our enterprise fund far exceed the current fund reserves. Our internal services fund reserves support our capital investment for mobile equipment and ITS, and that has a balance of $3 million. And that is reserved for equipment replacement. And reserves will build up over time because we have some very expensive equipment. And so we build it up over time, and then when those pieces of equipment are replaced, then the fund reserves come back down. So it kind of ebbs and flows based on the replacement model of our equipment. And then finally, I'm showing the self-insurance fund. Currently, as of December 31st, 2023, we do not have any excess fund reserves in our self-insurance fund. So our self-insurance fund supports actuarially determined self-insurance liabilities, and if our fund covers the full liabilities, it's considered fully funded. And we were below fully funded by just a little bit, $5,600, but it's not fully funded, so I'm not showing a reserve balance here. And those balances are used for, again, not emergencies, but larger settlements, right? So when we get the results of the encampment suit, there may be dollars associated with that settlement, and that's kind of what comes out of the self-insurance fund, as well as workers' compensation. So for the Board of Estimate and Taxation, we covered this on Monday night as well. They will set the maximum property tax levy before September 30th of this year. We will present to the BET and request our maximum and hope that we have the support of the members of the BET. And so this resolution before you is requesting $90,872,000 or a 9.94% property tax levy increase for 2025. And this chart is the chart that we've shown the mayor, and is a chart that we present to the Board of Estimate and Taxation. The top of it, the 4.3% increase, is what the mayor planned for the park board for 2025. And so all of the items below are additive above the 4.3%. And again, you can see the largest increase there is for wages and fringe adjustments. For 2026, we have a 7.24% increase. Again, I'm showing the 4.3% projected from the mayor's budget, and then the additive pieces. And again, the provision for wage adjustment is not as large in 26 as it is in 25, as we're making all of those adjustments within 25 regarding the wage and reclassifications. So with that, I will end on this friendly, fun piece. If we do not get the support for the 9.94% property tax levy increase that we are asking for, this is examples of the budget deficit that we will be facing as we move along in our 2025-26 budget process.
Thank you so much, Director Wiseman. Questions? I see Commissioner Olson's light, please.
Yeah, so do we have the number? I know we're already reaching historic high request here, as you pointed out. But do we have the number for what our request would have to be to meet the union's offer for wages?
Yes, I presented that on Monday, so I'm going to try to do it off the top of my head. I don't have the slide here. I think it's 10.37. It's an additional 2.1 million that we would need to add over the 2 years. 2.1 over the 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of think, seeing the situation we're in, and you should always kind of, I think, shoot for, we don't really know where that situation is headed and the uncertainty there. I think it's important that we allow ourselves wiggle room in that regard. And so my proposal would be that we bump up our request to that 10.37, even though it's above historic levels. I think it's important that we just give ourselves as many options as possible. Now, I don't have an amendment ready for that, so I think I'd have to suspend and stuff like that. But we can go through some discussion, but that would be my proposal. And I think that, given everything that's going on, that would be the prudent thing to do.
Commissioner Menz.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee. I appreciate you letting me speak and ask a question. So what would be preventing us from using any of those reserves that were just presented to us in the enterprise fund? I know that they're generally used for certain purposes, but what, as a board member, prevents us from tapping those for certain circumstances that might include wages?
So our financial management policy states that reserves should be used for one-time purposes, not ongoing expenditures. So those dollar amounts are finite numbers, right? They go up, they go down, depending on the year. And if you're going to utilize reserves, it's best to use them for one-time purposes. If you choose to use them for something other than one-time purposes, you must have a plan on how you're going to return those dollars, so that the impact is still there, right? For our enterprise fund, we were paying for the Neiman debt, the Neiman Field debt out of that fund, which is a general fund activity. And that really impacted our ability to maintain our golf courses, Lake Harriet, Pavilion, all of those things. So $3 million in the enterprise fund is really not a lot of money.
But it could be used for one-time funds to create a stopgap, and then we would have to figure out what would be the way to fund that in the future. What happens to the money that we budget for wages where positions go unfilled? So if we budget for a certain amount of positions and then we don't have 20 people there, or we have them for part of the year, what happens to those funds that we budgeted for at the end of the year?
Commissioner Menz, so for our budgeting purposes, we have budgeted a vacancy savings into our annual budget. And I don't know the number off the top of my head. I think it's 1.4, 1.9. Yep, 1.9, which is about a 3% vacancy rate. And industry standard would be about 4%. In the last year and then this year, any additional vacancy savings over that 1.9 million helped us with that 1.2 million of not collecting property taxes, right? So there's, we're either adding or subtracting to our reserves based on how much revenue we bring in and how much we spend in expenditures. So those vacancy savings allow for some of that flexibility when other things aren't happening.
Could we change our vacancy savings rate to pay for that return to the enterprise fund if we use some of those reserves? Would that be an appropriate way to repay that fund?
Can I just remind Commissioner Menz that we're speaking toward the percentage to go to the Board of Estimate and not the entire budget? So please feel free to finish, but I just want to make sure we don't go a rabbit hole.
Thank you.
Chair Thompson and Commissioner Menz. So vacancy savings, the higher that vacancy savings gets, the less flexibility you have in the general fund to adjust for other factors that happen. So can it be done? Yes. Is it prudent? Is it financially prudent to do that?
Maybe not. Okay.
Commissioner Schaefer. Yes, you're on the committee, so I'll let you go,
Sure.
and then I'll get to
I will
Commissioner
jump in
Alpert.
here. Thank you, Director Wiseman, for all this information. I really appreciate it. Can you give me just a little background on how we get to the system equity investment number when we bring a park online? We have a big number for Graco, almost $500,000. Can you just you know, it kind of points to this, you know, tension we feel with expansion and then maintaining what we have, and maybe you can kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So for Graco Park, we have 3.25 full-time FTEs that will be allocated to the park, and 3.62 part-time FTEs. The majority of that is for asset management staff. So I believe there's a part of a crew leader, there's park keeper, and then there's activation of the park as well. So some of the part-time dollars are for kind of the customer engagement aspect of that. And there will be a Spark Studio there, but that isn't part of the system equity investment because we already have those funds in hand.
Thank you. So, you know, so really that's a staffing number more than anything else, that $500,000. Okay, thank you. That was the main question I have. The other thing I want to point out to my commissioners other colleagues that I'm wrestling with is that, you know, originally when we had our budget retreat, we were thinking 8 to 9%, and now we're approaching 10%, just under 10%. And this is a challenge, right? And so I am excited to see that it is primarily for wages and benefits. Like you said, 80%. I had a question on two numbers, though. It seemed like the slide that you presented to the mayor had a $3 million number, and then maybe one back had 3.9 million. I wasn't sure if you could share with me what that discrepancy might be, and maybe I just misread it wrong.
So what we presented to the mayor was this chart here.
Correct.
And it's actually, this chart is actually a little higher because I think when we presented to the mayor, it was 8.94% property tax increase. And so as we've continued negotiations and had other unions approach us, that we increased it. So this is higher than what we presented to the mayor.
So, okay, this is the mayor's slide. Can you go back a couple? The one that had the wages and fringe at 3.9, 3.9?
Maybe this
there it is.
one? Yes. So this one, so this one is, I just had to think. This one is without the 4.3. This is all of it, where the other chart, we start with the 4.3%. So that 4.3% is not broken out between full-time, part-time, other expenditures. So this one shows the complete change of 7.6 million. And this chart shows the difference between 4.3% and 9.94%, so that we can explain to the city and the mayor what is driving our percentage higher than the 4.3%.
Yep. And when the mayor suggests something that maybe we didn't have in our lower columns, can you kind of speak to that process? Do you take it if you can get it, or do you say, no, Mayor, we really want you to fund this line item?
So Chair Thompson and Commissioner Schaefer, in my history here, most of the time the mayor is taking our list and subtracting things.
Okay.
I think there was only one time where we didn't specifically ask for, I think it was the, what is it called, the community school thing? Yeah. I think that one was,
so if his list differs from your list, he respects your list and doesn't push his item.
Chair Thompson and
I'm
Commissioner
speaking. I'm speaking
Yep.
in reference to the Youth 260 investment.
Okay, so the mayor supports the 260 investment. I wouldn't see that he would take that away.
But that was not on our list.
It's already built in, it's built into the 4.3, sorry. So you'll see that the 260 is up here in the 4.3. So it's in the mayor's recommended amount.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'm just understanding how our recommendations fit with his recommendation there.
Yeah.
Because
like-
our recommendation didn't have that in there. Did it? We had 560, right?
Okay. So the 260 is built into the 90 million. And so in this
Oh, I see.
chart,
I'm with
in
you.
this
The
chart,
560 was a differential.
yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for clearing. And I just, one other thing is this the first time that we've actually put free youth programming in our levy request? I don't remember that in previous years,
Chair
and I think that's a
Thompson.
philosophical change.
Chair Thompson and Commissioner Schaefer, this is the first year that we are putting anything to do with the free programming into
Because if I
the
remember
property
right,
tax.
the loss we had on it was around $750,000 to $1 million.
Yep.
And so this is really kind of, I'm not sure what this means or why that's there, but it's a very small drop in the bucket.
So Chair Thompson and Commissioner Schaefer, during the 2024 budget process, we increased adult fees, and we decreased expenses in the recreation budget to help close that $700,000 gap. So we took care of that within the 2024 budget. This is the expansion going citywide. So instead of having just the 17 sites having free and reduced costs citywide for youth, we are just estimating at this point that we might collect less revenue, and we are spreading it over the 2 years, with reducing it by 150 in 2025 and 150 in 2026.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to sit with that. I think that's a shift for us, and I need to think about that some more. But thank you for the answers to all those questions.
Yes.
I will go to Commissioner Alpert next.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions about this in terms of, we've had a lot of talk about how reliant we are on property taxes. And so that got me thinking about diversification of revenue streams. And I'm wondering, you know, with the enterprise fund and some of the things that come out of it, which I believe include concessions, correct? Have we ever, is there any possibility where we could, say, double concession locations, mobile concessionaires in our parks? Have we considered this concept?
Chair Thompson and Commissioner Alpert, I think I'll divert to Deputy Superintendent for that question.
Co-Chair Thompson and Commissioner Benny, we have a group of folks who think quite a bit about how to expand enterprise opportunities within the system. Shane Stencil has probably 100 different ideas right in this moment on things that would come into fruition. Part of it is the market, right? And so how much do we actually have in terms of demand in the system? We're working right now to try to put together a concession agreement for the sculpture garden. We're hoping that that one is going to be fantastic and help bring revenue into that space. And then there's also a limited capacity. All of these things require staff to be able to manage it as well. So we're really pretty close to capacity in terms of what staff can manage in terms of the enterprise aspects within the system. But yeah, there's always a question, new ideas, new types of programs, new ways to activate the spaces. That is always on our mind.
Yeah, and I bring that up because I've seen a lot of demand around concessions at Powderhorn Park, which is not one of our locations, and I know there have been some challenges there as well. But I just would love to see us, as we're looking at this list for the levy, that we're also thinking about the most potentially profitable decisions that we could be making that are out there and pursuing those at the same time. And then I have Director Weissman, you brought up Neiman Fields, and that got me thinking, Neiman, that's not in Minneapolis. Got me thinking about all these places that we, right? So here we are supporting operations of facilities not in Minneapolis. And I just think, you know, looking at the mission of what we do here, I think Minneapolis is a key part of it. And I personally would be pro, especially for the things that cost us money to consider. Maybe we don't. Maybe we do away with those things. And I don't have my hands on the figures, but I would. Well, let's get back. Let's stay within our lane. And I think our lane is Minneapolis specific, especially if it costs us money. So thanks for bringing that up. And then last but not least, I'm wondering if there are cases where we have moved money from the enterprise fund to the general fund.
Co-Chair Thompson and Commissioner Alper, in the heyday of golf, we did support Youth Line through a transfer from the enterprise fund into the general fund. We also took out the debt to create Neiman Field, and we increased golf rates at the time to pay for that debt service. And then the recession hit and people stopped golfing. And so that's why our reserves in our enterprise fund are not where, you know, we would like to see them.
Yeah. In the time remaining, just to say that parking is a big part of our revenue in the enterprise fund. It's a revenue generator. And I would love to see what would be the impact if we, you know, in the pursuit of diversification of revenue streams, if we doubled parking fees everywhere. Just putting it out there. And I believe Secretary Ringgold has her light on.
Thank you, Commissioner Alper. I'm curious if my colleague knows that Theodore Wirth Park is actually not in the city of Minneapolis. Secretary Ringgold, did you have a comment to make? Clarify something for us.
Co-Chair Thompson, Commissioner Alper, the one thing I also wanted to say is that revenue generation isn't exclusive to enterprise activities. So there's a lot of ways that we do generate revenue. You think of program fees for recreation programs, you know, rentals of spaces within rec centers. We actually have a lot of revenue generation outside of the enterprise fund, and so it doesn't have to be revenue generation just in the enterprise fund.
Thank you. Vice President Abeni.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Just along those lines, I think that also looking for places to kind of relieve the general fund. So one thing we did do was the stormwater fee. That is, it's still basically the same payers, but it's much more incremental. It's a use fee for using stormwater infrastructure, including our waterways and things like that. But it relieves the general fund. And if we can find, identify things there to do, I think it's better. The enterprise fund, particularly the part of it that's meant to reinvest in the enterprise assets and the enterprise systems, that's pretty important, because if we start to do that, you're basically robbing from your future when you're going to need to go back and, you know, fix something that's in the enterprise. So I don't know, there's probably some opportunity to think more creatively about some ways to relieve that general fund so that we don't have to rely on the taxes so much. And I'll say this, and I'm glad that some members of 363 have stayed in the room, and Director Wiseman, if you could go back to the one slide where you have the, it was early, where you list out the sort of how we ranked things or listed things, that one. This was I would say this board's effort to prioritize wages and prioritize this year. So it was a focus that came out of this work. And you can see it in that number. That's the largest number on there. And we rolled the dice on some things like the youth programming. We said, we have a gap. We're not going to squeeze the property taxes because we want to maximize what we can do for wages. And we are counting on the fact that we will be successful in asking the city for some one-time monies. They have much more money than the park board does. They have that reserve fund, that's a much bigger budget, $1.8 billion, and that reserve fund that we have, theirs is a 17% reserve fund that they keep. I think just because of the size of their overall budget. So anyway, I think I just want to show that and have that be seen and yeah, okay.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. So there are challenges clearly in the city and for our organization, and we have this ask, and that's what we have. We're going to vote on it momentarily. What number did we present to the mayor? You said this is higher than what we presented to the mayor. Was it in the 8 range? Was it in the low 9s? What did we present to the mayor?
Yeah, I think it was about 8.6%.
Okay.
8.7. Huh? 8.9.
Thank you so much. And then I just have one other question. I'm not trying to do a doomsday scenario, but this is larger than we've asked, right? It's more than double what the mayor was gonna do, like the way, I know how people plan and they budget. What have we considered impact scenarios if the BET, like we can approve this and we can move it forward, but if the BET doesn't ultimately get behind this, do we know what that might look like? Have we considered those kind of aspects?
Co-Chair Thompson and commissioners, that's exactly why we had conversations during our budget retreats about what were your priorities, but also what would you want to protect in this budget process? Because we very likely will be facing a deficit that we will need to solve for. So.
Thank you. I know there are other lights and other comments. Commissioner Schaefer, did you have another question? Or?
I had a couple comments.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Couple things. One is, I believe the mayor can't say no to wage and benefit increases. I believe that is something the city council will support.
Yeah.
And what I would like to really make clear with them is that's part of our system equity investment. That they cannot ignore that, just like, well, that's just bringing another park online. You use another park keeper from over here to go take care of this place. We can't do that to our workers. Well, we're trying to lead here. So what I would say is we have to make clear to him that those park keeper positions are just as important as the wage and benefit increases. And that system and equity investment, we need to get that too. And so I'm optimistic about that. But I'm going to be very honest too. Is this prioritization for wage increases? It's going to be over the next 3 years. This isn't just 2025 budget. This is going to be Focus 26, Focus 27, and maybe there's going to be some things we can do to sweeten it as we go along. But I'm just saying this is it. We've made a major commitment to our employees by this 9.45. I can't even say it, 9.94% ask. And I stand by that. I think it's extremely important. But I have to say this, because you all know this about me, I think we need to be adding our staff on natural resources, and I think we also need to maintain the physical aspects of our system better. But if we don't have employee satisfaction, that's pretty important. To me, that's elemental. So I understand this, and I will support this increase. I would suggest that we take out the 150 for free youth programming and put that into the wages and benefits as well. And it's not a lot, but it's something, or just take it out altogether and reduce the 9.94 a little bit. That's my thought, but not for tonight. But I just think we need to prioritize the actual infrastructure that we have, because it's no fun to work in a system that's falling apart, right? Or to work with tools that are not state of the art, or to have to, I was in Lebanon Hills yesterday, watching them. It was just this much of change in the concrete. They have mostly soft trails there, but they had some concrete. They had hired somebody to raise this differential of 1/2 inch to 1 inch so that nobody would trip on it. And they were digging, they were drilling into the side to lift it up and put foam underneath the concrete. And I thought, you know what? I wish we could give that kind of care to our system, because it needs it. So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Menz, I will let you speak again, but I'm going to go to Commissioner Olson because he is on the committee, if you're okay with that. Thank you. Commissioner Olson, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna, kind of hearing some of those arguments and everything, I still would like to move and increase, and so I believe I do have to make a motion to suspend the rules to offer an amendment, and I do have the numbers, Director Wiseman, pulled up here. So I would like to move to suspend the rules for the purpose of bringing forward an amendment to Resolution 2024-137. And just to clarify, the amendment will be to increase the request from 9.94 to 10.79. And then that amount would be from 90,872,000 to 91,570,572. This is for purposes of meeting our full wage obligations. So that's my motion.
All those in favor of suspending the rules?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I tried.
I respect that, Commissioner Olson, and I would suggest perhaps an amendment when it comes to the full board.
Yep.
Commissioner Menz.
So if we were to, how would this, it would only change by 150,000 each year if we were to not have the free youth program any longer and go back to what we had before 2021 that it was?
Co-Chair Thompson and Commissioner Menz, we would still have the citywide free and reduced cost youth programming because we have a directive from the board to consolidate our scholarships, our fee waivers, and our free programming so that we can offer it citywide. So we would still move ahead with that. We would just potentially have a budget deficit like we had when we implemented the free programming at the 17 sites.
Okay, and just to quickly respond to Commissioner Alper and Neiman Fields, although it is not in Minneapolis, it does serve Minneapolis residents, but I do wonder about the fact that Neiman Fields is in the enterprise fund, yet we do have less revenue. It's not in the enterprise, oh, that's right, it's not in the enterprise fund. It's in the general fund. But there is a capacity for possibly more revenue at those spaces if we market it to outside entities. And maybe we need to start thinking about those assets in those ways if we need more revenue.
Thank you, Commissioner Menz. Not seeing any other lights, I will just editorialize for a second and echo what Commissioner Schaefer said, in that I was at Minnehaha Falls on Saturday. It's a glorious Saturday, and I saw 363. I don't know if you were out there. Sorry?
Why didn't you grab a sign?
I didn't know you were going to be there. I was with my son and my family.
We have plenty of signs for all of you.
I would just like to say that park, it was sad to me. I grew up right by Minnehaha Falls, and like literally the crumbling space. I was there with a cousin of mine who grew up in the area but hasn't lived here for 30 years, and every time she visits, she wants to get a picture by the falls. And I remarked to her, and to anybody who was listening, unfortunately I didn't chat with you guys, that it really meant something, that here's this person who every time they come to this area, they were coming because the family was in health situation, had to make sure to come to our parks. And we have a lot of needs, there's no denying that. And what Commissioner Schaefer said, I know and I hope that you can hear, Vice President Abeni said it as well, there are efforts to take care of the people that make this system great. And I don't have the answers, but I want to thank you, Director Wiseman, for the presentation. It is a lot of challenges, and I know we're hopefully up for the task. That said, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-137, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Would someone like to move our next resolution?
I can move Resolution 2024-134. Resolution approving a lease agreement with Minneapolis Veterans Healthcare System regarding a revocable license for non-federal use of real property within Fort Snelling as part of the Fort Snelling Fred Wells Tennis and Education Center parking lot improvement projects.
Any questions? Would someone like a presentation on this? Are we good? Okay. It's kind of a fun one too, so. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-134, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Last one, and this one was hard worked, so who would like to move this resolution? It's a fun one.
I'll read it. I'll move Resolution 2024-92, resolution approving Third Amendment to lease agreement with Boys and Girls Clubs of the Twin Cities, leasing the Phelps Field Park Center building at 701 East 39th Street, extending the term of the lease agreement through December 31st, 2029, and modifying other terms of the lease agreement.
Thank you so much. And there is it's basically a replacement substitute resolution. Would someone like to move that, or would you just like me to? I will move the substitute resolution for 2024-92. And there are many modifications, so I will just simply read the resolution part. Resolution 2024-92, it's the whole thing, and then it changes the dates. So it is in our packet. I believe it's all public data. Any questions or comments? Would anyone like a presentation? I would like to read something from our colleague who is not here, whose district Phelps is in, and that is Commissioner Musich. So I'm just going to read this verbatim for the record. For the Boys and Girls Club item on the Admin and Finance agenda, please share this for me. The latest iteration of the lease extension at Phelps Field Park achieves the following service level improvements for neighborhood residents. A park board staff member on site on the park to serve as a resource for connecting residents to park programs and rentals, reliable and consistent access to restrooms, the ability to rent park facilities when not in use by the Boys and Girls Club or park programs, advanced planning for the transition from Boys and Girls Club operations of the building to MPRB operations to ensure proactive planning to reduce disruptions to programming and services in the space. And additionally, this lease requires reporting from the Boys and Girls Club and the Park Board Recreation staff that should help us all as policymakers to better understand the levels of service being achieved under the lease. I support the adoption of this lease and ask my colleagues to pass it out of committee. Thank you. And that's Commissioner Musich, who was on a prior engagement for tonight. Seeing no lights, how about we take this long-awaited, and thank you to the Boys and Girls Club members who have been here for this short meeting, air quotes. Hey, it's better than a couple years ago. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-92, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and I would like to thank the Boys and Girls Club and the staff for working so tirelessly to get that to a place.
Becca.
Sorry. Yes, Secretary Ringgold, forgive me.
Co-Chair Thompson, Council Rice. do we technically have to approve it again? So is that considered like an amendment to the original resolution, or is?
It probably would be a good idea, because it essentially did come on as a staff recommendation as an amendment for tonight.
Then let us do that again, but I think they have the same numbers. So all those in favor of the amended resolution 2024-92, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Drum roll.
Yes, yes. And with that, I will adjourn at 8:07 the Administration and Finance Committee.
Did we complete the?
President
the
Forney,
regular
I don't
board
think we
meeting?
closed our
We did
regular
not close the
meeting.
regular board meeting.
Okay,
When-
I
when
had
did
some
she adjourn
questions
the
on the
regular board
Greenway,
meeting?
but,
When?
okay, okay.
Did we recess or adjourn?
Yeah, it was a discussion.
So, when was it adjourned?